What defines a true star in the darkness? Beneath a star-filled sky, debris litters the snow-covered ground as a pale-haired boy emerges from the wreckage. Despite being trapped in squalor and destruction, he reaches upward with unwavering determination. His hooded cloak cannot hide the inner light burning within his heart, a flame that refuses to be extinguished by circumstance. The pale-haired youth's eyes blaze with intensity as he declares his defiance against fate. Steam rises from his breath in the frigid air as he raises his sword high, grinning with fierce determination. The cold environment cannot freeze his burning resolve. Against the serene backdrop of a starry night sky, he proclaims that those who possess the will to shine are destined to become stars themselves. In a peaceful moment beneath the night sky, Vlad stands outside a quaint stone building, mesmerized by a glimmering sword. His blue eyes reflect pure admiration as he gazes at the weapon's ethereal light. Jemina playfully interrupts his reverie, teasingly confirming that she knew he would be distracted by something. Their lighthearted exchange contrasts sharply with the earlier dramatic tension. Jemina confronts Vlad about his concerning behavior, her red dress flowing as she stands with arms crossed. The disheveled blonde young man brushes off her worries, claiming that staring into space is one of his few pleasures in life. As Jemina presses him about hearing voices when he sees sword-like objects, Vlad grows thoughtful. She leans closer, whispering intensely about the danger his absent-mindedness could bring. Inside a dimly lit wooden room, Jemina continues her warnings about the new bishop's intolerance toward omens. The former Inquisition member would burn anyone at the stake for even a hint of evil signs. Vlad dismisses her concerns as overreacting, insisting no one will take him away just for looking at a sword. Their heated discussion reveals the deep care they have for each other, even as they bicker about his reckless behavior. Vlad's frustration peaks when he learns the sword costs 5 gold, a fortune that could sustain them for an entire year. Jemina expresses disbelief at such an astronomical price for what she dismisses as scrap metal. Their moment of shared understanding about the value of money is shattered when a burly blacksmith angrily yells at them, brandishing a weapon and ordering the bloody brats to get lost. The confrontation intensifies as Jemina boldly challenges the elderly blacksmith about his unrealistic expectations. She questions why he would waste time making a sword when no knights frequent the slums. The blacksmith, his white beard trembling with rage, demands respect while Jemina fires back, calling him senile. Vlad attempts to de-escalate the heated exchange as tensions reach a boiling point in the dim, gritty atmosphere. The blacksmith recalls his past kindness to Jemina, feeling betrayed by her harsh words as snow falls around him. He expresses his frustration at saving her from starvation only to receive insults in return. Examining deep footprints in the mud, he deduces that someone has been standing nearby for quite a while, watching and waiting. The discovery adds an ominous layer to the already tense situation. In his workshop, the blacksmith grips his sword while lamenting about dreams being futile in the slums. He warns that survival should be the priority, not fantasies that lead to bitter disappointment. Determined not to let his final masterpiece rot away in the dump, he declares he will only sell it to someone capable of escaping this place. The scene transitions to reveal the broader context of their world, the prosperous trading hub dominated by the powerful Vizid family. The camera sweeps across Skawara's dark rooftops, illuminated by scattered lanterns that cast dancing shadows. Beneath the city's radiance lies a harsh truth. The slums serve as a dumping ground for everything filthy and disgusting. Inside a lively tavern, a muscular bald man with a neck tattoo furiously points at an off-screen figure, his veins bulging with rage as he accuses them of attempting to scam him. In the dimly lit establishment, Vlad maintains his composure as the bald man expresses frustration with the constant chaos. The blonde youth sarcastically informs him that spending time with the madam requires payment in gold, not silver. The muscular patron reacts with disbelief at such prices in what he considers a dump. Their exchange crackles with tension as Vlad delivers quick-witted retorts to the increasingly agitated customer. The confrontation escalates as Vlad calmly suggests they test whether his candle will truly last 5 minutes by checking the clock. With confident composure, he challenges the skeptical customer to put his money where his mouth is. The blonde youth implies that if the test fails, the man can take his frustrations out on a nearby woman. Despite the mounting tension, Vlad maintains his challenging smirk and encourages the deal. Vlad's confidence turns menacing as he declares that if the candle truly lasts 5 minutes, he will beat the man within an inch of his life. The bald customer stares in shock, wondering how a mere kid can possess such an intimidating look in his eyes. Vlad's intense blue gaze pierces through the dim lighting as he flicks the candle's wick with a sharp movement, ready to reveal who the real swindler is. Tension fills the air as the muscular man sweats heavily, his forehead glistening while he glares at Vlad. The rhythmic ticking of the clock emphasizes the pressure mounting with each passing second. Vlad stands calmly, his striking blue eyes focused and unwavering. Suddenly, the candle begins to extinguish with a soft hissing sound, causing the bald man to react with surprise as he turns toward the clock with growing concern. Panic overtakes the bald man as he exclaims in horror, questioning what time they started their wager. Vlad executes a swift strike with his stick, connecting with a dramatic thwack that echoes through the tavern. Despite a small amount of blood on his cheek from an earlier injury, the determined blonde sternly declares that 5 minutes have passed. A nearby girl observes the confrontation with growing concern. Vlad delivers a powerful kick that sends the muscular man crashing to the ground with a painful yell. The blonde youth strides confidently into the room, weapon in hand, commanding his fallen opponent to say his prayers. The bald man looks bewildered and frightened, attempting to cover his mouth while reaching out desperately. Vlad retorts that his opponent is the real liar here, preparing to strike again with fierce determination. The confrontation continues with Vlad delivering another sharp kick, taunting the former mercenary about his prominent belly after 20 years of supposed service. The muscular man, now on the ground, angrily demands Vlad shut his mouth while struggling against his dominant position. Vlad coldly mentions that he has no mother to bring, adding a personal sting to his psychological warfare. The scene shifts between intense combat and moments of dark humor. The scene shifts to a dimly lit room where Jorge, a muscular man with a braided beard, chews food while addressing concerns about someone tampering with their sacred rose candles. Marcella, a sharp-featured woman with dark hair and visible fangs, angrily questions who would dare mess with their primary income source. A blond young man gasps in shock, desperately asking how they will identify the culprit. The tension suddenly breaks with a comedic reveal. Vlad cheerfully admits he was the one who tampered with the candles. Marcella, a stunning woman with long purple hair, is introduced as someone who manipulates dinner fools for profit. She stands confidently at the bar, while Jorge reflects on beating someone without proper cause. A lighter-haired man descends the stairs, looking uneasy but determined to comply with Marcella's influence. Another character in a red vest greets the newcomer with initial friendliness before demanding explanations for the actions taken in his absence. 5 young men gather in a dimly lit room to discuss money collected from candle sales. Vlad confronts a man named Burly with intense blue eyes, aggressively questioning his actions. Burly, wearing a red shirt, attempts to lighten the mood, but the tension remains thick. Vlad suggests making a deal instead of simply handing over cash, hinting at the involvement of a clumsy pickpocket. The rustic setting with stone walls and stacked boxes creates a chaotic atmosphere. A confrontation unfolds as a sly man in a brown vest aggressively holds a sobbing dark-skinned boy, demanding recognition. Vlad responds with disdain, expressing concern about the boy's condition, particularly his fingers and ankles. The atmosphere grows more sinister as the captors reveal they're offering the boy for 40 silver, claiming it's practically a steal. The sound of clinking coins punctuates the tense negotiation as Vlad faces this disturbing human trafficking situation. The young boy named Ned flinches in terror, his face smudged with dirt as he contemplates the harsh reality of his situation. The group of men mock his predicament, with one stating confidently that Vlad will take the deal because of his control over street children. Ned stammers an apology to Vlad, explaining he tried to escape from his captors. The blond youth maintains his composure while his icy blue eyes calculate the dangerous situation unfolding before him. Ned shows visible distress as Vlad threatens him with crushing violence if he doesn't get out of his sight. The young boy responds with fearful gratitude, thanking Vlad despite the intimidation. As the scene transitions to a harbor view with docked ships, Vlad sits alone, sighing while contemplating his financial struggles and wondering when he'll ever save up 5 gold. His reflection reveals the weight of survival in their harsh world. Harvin, a clerk in a teal vest, discusses the brutal consequences Ned could have faced. Fingers cut off, ankle tendons sliced, as the bishop wanted to make an example of pickpockets. Vlad listens intently as Harvin explains that such harsh punishment serves as a deterrent. The conversation shifts to rumors about someone tampering with candles at the Smiling Rose. Harvin acknowledges how quickly word travels in their community, noting that Jorge is already aware of the incident. The dialogue intensifies as they discuss the urgent need for money that drives such desperate actions. Harvin warns Vlad to be careful, explaining that families only gather money suddenly for one reason. The atmosphere grows ominous as a dramatic revelation unfolds. War with another family. A chaotic brawl scene depicts the brutal reality of their conflicts, while the narrative reveals that 5 bosses rule over Skora's slums. The 5 crime bosses who control Skora's underworld are introduced in menacing detail. Jorge the Horsguard grips his sword with deadly intent. Blackbear the Butcher engages in dangerous gambling while exuding raw intimidation. Dice the Gambler flaunts his flashy lifestyle surrounded by chips and coins. Captain Hoover the Whaler navigates treacherous waters with his harpoon. One-armed Jack, the penny pincher, gathers coins with predatory greed. Each boss represents a different aspect of the slum's criminal empire. In a dimly lit tavern filled with rough individuals, Vlad addresses the crowd from a raised platform, his untucked white shirt contrasting with the darker atmosphere. A large muscular man with a scruffy beard demands to know where Vlad's boss is, his harsh demeanor cutting through the tension. The blonde youth stares back with a mixture of determination and wariness, fully aware of the dangerous undertones in their conversation as anticipation builds among the gathered onlookers. A menacing man with dark hair questions what the penny pincher is doing in their territory, his intimidating smile suggesting hostility. Vlad contemplates whether they're truly preparing for war as tensions escalate. Another individual shouts in frustration, demanding attention as he repeats the question about Vlad's boss. The atmosphere thickens with aggressive energy as multiple parties converge on the blonde youth, each seeking answers to their territorial concerns. Vlad nervously claims he's just someone who sells candles, but his explanation only enrages the dark-haired thug further. The aggressive man barks commands while gripping the table's edge, his clenched teeth revealing barely contained fury. He demands that Vlad find his boss and bring him immediately. The confrontation reaches a breaking point as the thug slams the table with tremendous force, causing objects to tumble as the tavern patrons freeze in anticipation of violence. The aftermath of the table slam reveals shattered candle remnants scattered across the rustic floor. A group of concerned girls, blonde, brunette, curly-haired, and red-haired, observe the destruction with shock and disappointment. One sighs about the expensive candles being broken so carelessly. Vlad crouches beside the mess, reflecting on his lost business for the day, while the stern dark-haired man continues questioning whether this is all some kind of joke to him. Vlad calmly instructs the aggressive figure to move his foot while maintaining his composure. The muscular opponent responds with rage, calling him a punk and preparing to strike. As the attack comes, Vlad demonstrates remarkable agility, skillfully evading the blow while emphasizing the importance of planning terrain and strategy. His evasive maneuvers are highlighted by swift motion lines as he outmaneuvers his opponent's aggressive assault with calculated precision. Vlad stumbles backward after being struck, his eyes wide with shock and pain as the muscular attacker continues his assault. Despite the impact, the blonde youth gathers his focus, conveying steely determination. The surrounding onlookers display expressions of shock and tension, highlighting the gravity of the confrontation. As the narrator states the unchanging law of the slums, the atmosphere intensifies in this harsh world. Winners rise to the top while losers fall. A dramatic scene unfolds as a tall, muscular figure stands with commanding presence, sword in hand, illuminated by brilliant blue light. The onlookers react with anger and disbelief, one shouting in frustration about Vlad's defiant actions. As tensions escalate, another figure grows increasingly aggressive, demanding the blonde youth stop his disobedience. A darkened panel emphasizes the mounting tension as a new character asserts control, commanding everyone to halt with ominous authority. One-armed Jack enters the scene, expressing his fondness for Vlad while tapping his single hand against the table. He jokes about his inability to clap loudly due to missing a hand, creating a moment of dark humor. Vlad responds without discrimination toward those with disabilities, which amuses Jack greatly. The atmosphere shifts as Jack ominously promises to see Vlad again later, his predatory smile contrasting with the blonde's calm demeanor as he discusses someone from the past. In the lively tavern, one-armed Jack warmly greets Vlad, expressing surprise at his unexpected visit and offering to cook if he had advance notice. The atmosphere remains casual despite underlying tensions as a burly man with a top knot enters, causing a stir. Jack playfully questions their sudden closeness while suggesting they move upstairs, noting Vlad has brought other guests. The penny pincher downplays his hunger but inquires about drinks, hinting at his desire to socialize. Jack confidently assures Vlad that Marcella will take excellent care of him, smirking as he mentions possibly sampling the prepared food. Vlad exhales with relief, admitting he narrowly avoided a dangerous mishap. His concern grows as he notices a box overflowing with broken candles, exclaiming in frustration about the extensive damage. As he surveys the mess, another voice calls out to him, demanding his attention and signaling a shift in the conversation's focus. Jack expresses appreciation for Vlad, suggesting he should work for him since he enjoys the youth's company. Vlad responds that he's content with his current boss, who provides pay and shelter. Jack laughs heartily at this, offering to provide the same benefits. When Vlad hands over a gold coin for the candles, Jack is surprised by its generous value, while Vlad seems genuinely confused about whether the payment is excessive. Jack continues his recruitment pitch, promising there will be more rewards if Vlad works for him, revealing his identity as the penny pincher. Vlad thanks him for the food and bids farewell to Jorge, showing relief that their conversation went well. From a shadowy corner, someone comments on Vlad's apparent happiness. Suddenly, a girl with bright red hair calls out that Jorge wants to see him, causing Vlad to react with surprise and intrigue. Jorge hands Vlad a gleaming dagger, its blade catching the light as he explains he was going to give it later, but circumstances demand immediate action. The stern mentor instructs Vlad to keep the weapon on him at all times. The scene reveals Jorge's ability to read the dangerous atmosphere within the brothel. A woman with long dark hair shows worry as she glances at the intense discussion, while the tavern buzzes with tension and unspoken concerns. Jorge explains that certain endeavors have ended in disaster, his weathered face surrounded by shadows and wall cracks. He forbids Vlad from selling candles anymore due to intelligence about one-armed Jack recruiting a dangerous outsider, a former knight and mercenary. In the dimly lit tavern, a muscular man appears baffled about what he should do next. Vlad responds sarcastically while Jorge grimly confirms his connection to Jack's extensive criminal network. Jorge warns that if Jack hires a former knight to fight for him, it will immediately disrupt the delicate balance of power in the slums. Two armored figures are glimpsed, one wielding a sword, emphasizing the urgency and danger of the situation. The discussion puts Jorge's faction at a clear disadvantage, which is why he needs Vlad's help. The blonde youth looks confused when Jorge reveals he is the one needed for this critical task. Harvin sits at his ornate desk, jotting notes while contemplating how self-improvement can lead to better positions in life. Meanwhile, Vlad struggles with his sword technique, swinging with determination but frustrated by his consistent form problems. An unseen instructor advises him to keep his elbows closer to his body while swinging. The blonde youth questions why the same issue arises every time he attempts to practice, showing his growing frustration with his training progress. A flash of lightning illuminates the scene as Vlad reflects on hearing voices since being struck. He humorously suggests he might need holy water instead of a sword, showing resignation mixed with humor. Standing in the quaint village setting, he contemplates ignoring the voice, believing that responding only encourages more interaction. He urges himself to focus while preparing for the task ahead, emphasizing the importance of trying his hardest until the very end. The training intensifies as an instructor shouts command for Vlad to tuck in his elbows and strike with everything he has. The determined blonde youth grips his practice weapon while rain or magical energy falls around them. As he swings, a dramatic whooshing sound punctuates his movement. After executing the technique, Vlad observes with surprise that this attempt felt different from his previous efforts, suggesting a breakthrough in his training. Vlad reflects on his progress, noting that while he was previously just swinging the sword, this time he created something entirely different, a sword arc. A bright flash erupts as he executes the technique, producing a dazzling arc of light with sweeping lines and a soft glow. A mysterious shadowy figure holding a sword appears, adding intrigue to the moment. Growing confused and alarmed, Vlad exclaims in bewilderment about whatever is manifesting in his head. Under a moonlit sky with snowy mountain peaks, Vlad wipes blood from his sword, appearing visibly weary. He comments on feeling his age as the piercing cold winter wind cuts through to his bones. A cuckoo call interrupts his contemplation, causing him to turn slightly, his cloak billowing around him. His facial expressions convey fatigue and bemusement as he ponders whether the sound is intentional or simply foolish. In the snowy forest, illuminated by pale moonlight, a cloaked figure identified as Vlad walks through the crunching snow. He calls out, demanding to know who is making the cuckoo noise. A blond young man responds boldly, confirming his presence and identity as Stangar. Vlad inquires about his background from slums, remarking on his unexpectedly noble appearance. Stangar presents a letter with a wax seal, stating it's from his boss. Vlad consults a piece of parchment, realizing the strategic implications of a rival family hiring a former knight as a mercenary. The young man Stangar confidently declares he will lead the way, estimating they'll arrive at their destination in 2 nights. Vlad appears skeptical and sighs, unsure about following someone he considers foolish. The exchange reveals Vlad's criticism of Stangar's poor judgment, particularly regarding his inappropriate summerbird call in winter. Vlad looms menacingly over his companion, warning that he won't hesitate to kill him if he suspects any deception. Stangar appears anxious but determined, stating he doesn't want to mess up his first mission. As they walk together, Vlad reflects on his intimidating demeanor and observes that the young man didn't flinch at his threats. In a moment of grudging respect, Vlad smirks and acknowledges why Jorge would like this brave kid. The vast snowy mountain landscape stretches beneath a canopy of stars, creating a serene yet cold atmosphere. In a secluded forest nook, Vlad and Stangar sit beside a flickering campfire, the crackling flames filling the silence of the winter night. The blond youth gazes intently into the fire, deep in thought, while Vlad appears more relaxed. But as Stangar glances toward his mysterious companion, one question remains unanswered. What dark mission awaits them at their destination? As the fire crackles between them, Stangar notices Vlad's constant stare and nervously asks why he keeps looking at him. Vlad responds with dry humor about retired knights, prompting Stangar to inquire about his origins. When Vlad reveals he's from the remote region of Dacia, Stangar comments on how isolated that place is. The tension breaks momentarily when Stangar jokes darkly about getting lost and giving Vlad an excuse to kill him, though Vlad's piercing gaze suggests he's not entirely amused by the jest. The conversation shifts to food as Vlad examines some jerky, noting its freshness and assuming some belongs to him. Stangar disappoints him by admitting he didn't bring any food to share. As Vlad analyzes the stale meat with a tired expression, the aroma of cooking fills the air with a tantalizing sizzle. The smell immediately captures Vlad's hungry attention, causing him to drool at the tempting scent. He then abruptly asks Stangar if he has any questions, catching the youth off guard with his sudden change in topic. Vlad leans back with a smirk, proposing a trade, one answer for each piece of jerky he receives. When Stangar asks how many pieces he wants, Vlad maintains his pride as a knight, insisting on fair exchanges only. Their banter continues as Stangar jokes about Vlad's retirement, leading to more playful exchanges. Vlad reveals his companion's name as Stangar and teasingly inquires about his age. The blonde youth has a comedic reaction to Vlad's response, warning him not to push his luck in their lighthearted yet tense dynamic. In the flickering firelight, Stangar presses Vlad about whether he knows how to use an aura. Vlad retorts about external knowledge, implying Stangar's ignorance of the outside world. When Stangar persists in questioning Vlad's ability to use auras, explaining that not all knights possess this skill, Vlad's smirk widens playfully. He offers Stangar all the remaining jerky, creating excitement as the youth eagerly raises multiple pieces, ready to ask his next burning question about Vlad's mysterious abilities. Vlad leans against the cave wall with a sly smile, explaining that knights sometimes need to be extra generous beyond fair exchanges. Stangar watches with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief, wondering if Vlad will actually demonstrate his aura. Drawing one of his swords with a sharp ring of steel, Vlad mentions his hunger for dry jerky after days of poor meals. The anticipation builds as Stangar's eyes spark with excitement, sensing that something remarkable is about to unfold in this moment of demonstration. Vlad gazes intently with one eye closed, prompting Stangar to ask about this strange behavior. With mystical determination, Vlad explains that he must summon his own world from the depths of his soul. The atmosphere transforms as the scene transitions to an ethereal underwater realm, where Vlad holds his sword beneath swirling waters. Instructing Stangar to watch closely, Vlad prepares for his demonstration as magical particles dance through the water, creating an enchanting and mysterious atmosphere charged with anticipation. Vlad channels his mystical energy as a vibrant aura surrounds him, his sword glowing with what he proclaims as the true essence of knighthood. Stangar shields his eyes as brilliant light bursts forth, indicating a powerful transformation occurring before him. The atmosphere crackles with magical energy, emphasized by flashing lights and powerful sound effects. As Vlad's aura expands dramatically, the demonstration reaches its climax, filling the space with radiant power that showcases the incredible depth of a true knight's abilities. After the impressive display, Vlad expresses discomfort with his current appearance, feeling gross and disillusioned despite not meaning his physical looks. Standing in a dimly lit alley with a Gothic castle looming in the background, he laments the loss of a knight's dignity, feeling humiliated by their current circumstances. Stangar tries to lighten the mood, explaining their need for stealth rather than a bold entrance through the front door. He promises to prepare a bath once they reach their destination, showing consideration for his companion's discomfort. As they navigate the dimly lit alley, Vlad and Stangar notice signs of recent violence, shadows of fallen figures indicating a brutal fight occurred nearby. Vlad questions whether such violence is normal in this area, while Stangar's anxious denial reveals his shock at the situation. Recognizing the danger, Vlad suggests they split up for safety, offering to show Stangar a secret back entrance known only to family members. As Vlad prepares to divert attention by entering through the front door, he dashes away, leaving Stangar to follow the safer route. In the chaotic aftermath, Vlad reunites with Stangar in a room filled with overturned furniture and scattered debris. The emotional reunion is marked by relief and anxiety as Stangar expresses concern for Vlad's safety. Vlad reassures him while revealing that the penny pincher attacked during Stangar's absence. The presence of blood splatters and the disheveled state of other characters emphasizes the violent encounter they narrowly escaped. Vlad grimly notes that these money-grubbing enemies don't mess around, highlighting the serious danger they face. In the dimly lit room, the conversation reveals they haven't faced a knight in quite some time, indicating their return to turbulent days. A battle-worn, muscular man discusses plans to attack the penny pincher the following day, asserting his determination to settle matters once and for all. Stangar confirms that their expected ally likely arrived safely through the back entrance while they watch the front. The camaraderie and strategic urgency fill the air as they prepare for the decisive confrontation ahead, with questions about their new allies' condition showing their practical concerns. The discussion continues as Stangar casually describes their allies' imposing presence and agility, noting the man's impressive physical attributes. A burly man with striking blue eyes reacts with visible confusion to something in the conversation. The mood intensifies when a creaking sound interrupts their talk, hinting at another presence approaching. Stangar realizes someone is coming, mentioning it must be their expected ally. The tension amplifies as questions about the newcomer's aura abilities are raised, with confirmation that he indeed possesses such power. A muscular, scarred man grips his sword tightly, instructing Stangar to get behind him for protection. Stangar looks confused by this sudden defensive posture, asking what he means by the warning. The atmosphere shifts dramatically as a darkly cloaked figure enters ominously, announcing that Stangar doesn't actually have an aura. The bloodstained newcomer approaches with chilling presence, then addresses the muscular man by name, saying it's been quite a while since they last met. Jorge. The recognition creates immediate tension, suggesting a dangerous history between these former acquaintances. A pale, long-haired man in a dark cloak wipes blood from his blade, expressing weariness as he admits to feeling his age after the recent conflict. Standing against the cold winter wind with blood staining the snow around him, he comments on what appears to be an imitation of some kind. The surreal atmosphere is punctuated by cuckoo calls echoing through the desolate landscape. He ponders whether his opponents are simply foolish or acting with deliberate purpose, suggesting a deeper contemplation about the nature of the confrontation that just occurred. The scene opens with a heavily bloodied man lying on the ground, his eyes reflecting shock and pain from recent violence. A serious character with long blonde hair observes another man, noting how much he's changed over time. When questioned about his sudden visit, the revelation comes that Count Gatehar has passed away, news that hasn't been officially announced due to complications. The atmosphere grows increasingly somber as a glass is filled with dark liquid, and the blond man's violet eyes, streaked with blood, reflect the gravity of this significant loss. A character with intense features and a single green eye stares forward, adding to the mounting tension. The scene shifts to a bloodied hand holding a glass of amber liquid as the silver-haired man raises it in a grim toast, declaring it's for poor Count Gatehar. The mood escalates dramatically as another character with a thick beard and glowing blue eyes unleashes his fury, shouting angrily as he gestures violently. The confrontation reaches its peak as the silver-haired character lunges forward with a weapon, transforming the somber moment into explosive action. The white-haired figure grips his glass with a bloodied hand as the tension continues to mount. A muscular figure lunges into action, creating splashes and urgency as he breaks free from restraint. The atmosphere becomes charged with conflict as a voice declares the toast is for Shagmund, the new Count of Gatehar, revealing the political implications behind the violence. A determined leader with a strong build watches the unfolding chaos as amber liquid flies through the air amid the scattered debris, emphasizing the explosive nature of this power struggle. The muscular man shouts with intensity, his muscles bulging as he faces the white-haired figure in a deadly standoff. The sharp sound of scraping steel underscores their weapon clash, both combatants showing fierce determination. The white-haired fighter, identified as the runaway knight Godin, receives an ultimatum to return immediately on Lord Sigmund's first command. Jorge's resistance explodes as he shouts his defiance, declaring that Sigmund isn't his master, revealing the deep rift in loyalty that fuels this violent confrontation between former allies. Jorge confronts Godin with his sword raised, declaring that Count Sigmund naturally expects Jorge won't return willingly. The white-haired knight appears ready to retaliate as explosive sounds of slam and crash indicate violent impacts nearby. Debris flies through the chaotic scene as their conflict escalates beyond words into pure violence. Jorge strikes fiercely at his former ally, with thunderous sound effects of boom and BAM echoing through the chamber, transforming their political disagreement into a brutal physical confrontation that threatens to destroy everything around them. Godin leaps dramatically through the air as a massive explosion rocks the background, the sound of kaboom emphasizing the destructive force unleashed. Marcella, pulled away by the blonde Stangar in his tailored jacket, urgently follows his instruction to come with him as they flee the chaos. The muscular Jorge, his arms rippling with power, continues the fierce battle while others scramble for safety. In the stone-walled castle chamber, Burly calls for everyone to gather quickly upstairs as explosive crashes echo throughout the building, while a young boy curiously asks what's happening above them. The blonde youth wields his sword desperately, shouting commands as he narrowly dodges a fierce attack from above. Godin strikes downward with impressive agility, shattering debris around them as the confrontation intensifies. The youth's focused eyes reveal the high stakes of this deadly clash, while Marcella watches with deep concern etched on her face. Below, shocked onlookers react with fear and surprise as dangerous moves are executed above them, the sound of sizzling energy adding to the perilous atmosphere of this life-or-death battle. Jorge emerges with glowing purple eyes and blood on his face, telling his opponent he's still as foolish as always. The shocking revelation causes panicked reactions from observers who gasp in disbelief, asking what's happening to their boss. An injured man lies coughing on the ground, clearly wounded from the previous exchange. Jorge stands with unwavering resolve, sword at the ready, commanding others to stand while maintaining his cool demeanor. The dimly lit hall bears witness to this confrontation between former allies turned enemies. A sword cuts through the air with a sharp whoosh as the battle intensifies between the two former allies. Godin, covered in dirt and blood, clashes with Jorge as their blades meet with a resounding clang. The white-haired knight prepares to strike decisively, while Stangar watches anxiously from the sidelines. In a moment of urgent concern, Stangar shouts a warning to Jorge as he leaps dramatically, his face showing a mixture of fear and determination as the deadly confrontation reaches a critical moment. Jorge struggles on the ground, bloodied and strained as he gasps in pain, preparing to rise despite his injuries. A blade slices through the air as Godin stands over him with cold determination, telling Jorge he should have followed orders on that fateful day. Jorge defiantly asserts his humanity, rejecting the notion of following repulsive commands with fierce determination. The ash-covered battlefield provides a grim backdrop as these two former allies face off, their ideological differences laid bare in this moment of brutal confrontation. Jorge struggles with visible pain as Godin corrects him, insisting that he's not just a man, but a knight. The white-haired warrior displays a sly smile despite his blood-stained appearance, while Jorge grits his teeth with intense determination. Another character watches with concern from behind, recognizing the gravity of their confrontation. As the long night of violence weighs heavily on Godin, he admits his exhaustion, but the tension between these former comrades continues to escalate in the dimly lit space that has witnessed their brutal clash. Godin, with a bloodied cut on his cheek, expresses his need for rest after the prolonged battle. The scene shifts dramatically as Stangar sprints with determination, his agile movements emphasized by his dark, fitted clothing. A brilliant blue energy beam suddenly erupts from the ground where Stangar positions himself, illuminating the dark surroundings with mystical power. Godin prepares to harness this powerful energy as the sound of surging force fills the air, creating a tense buildup for the climactic confrontation between these opposing forces. Stangar presses his back against the wall in visible panic, shouting desperately as fear overwhelms him. His short blonde hair frames his terrified expression as he reaches out with one hand in desperation. A mysterious figure responds with an intense, glowing glare, boldly commanding him to stop with authoritative force. The surrounding characters, including hooded figures and a muscular bearded man, react with varying levels of apprehension and shock. The claustrophobic atmosphere intensifies as sound effects amplify the emotional drama of this pivotal moment. Stangar positions himself against the wall with renewed determination, though fear still marks his features as he prepares to face the imminent danger. A dark-haired figure with tousled gray hair appears, his tattered clothing bearing marks of recent battle. Bright flashes and crackling blue energy arcs fill the air, indicating a sudden burst of magical power about to unfold. The dynamic sound effects of swishing and flashing emphasize the rapid movements and intense energy building to a climactic moment in this supernatural confrontation. In the debris-filled, dilapidated room, Stangar crouches on the floor looking startled and weary, asking what's happening as unsettling sounds fill the air. His frustration becomes evident as he mutters angrily, trying to gather his bearings amidst the surrounding chaos. The atmosphere grows thick with tension as scattered objects and hazy conditions suggest approaching danger. His cerulean eyes widen in shock as he spots something alarming in the distance, his attention drawn to a significant threat that has suddenly appeared in their midst. Stangar calls out desperately for Jorge, his wide blue eyes filled with panic and concern. A figure lies with a bloody wound, blood dripping onto the floor to create a stark and menacing image in the dilapidated room. The boy's visceral reaction shows his shock and deep concern for Jorge, who appears to be in grave peril. The narrative reveals that Jorge had recognized the boy's potential, hinting at their significant relationship and shared dark past. This moment blends nostalgia with sorrow as the gravity of Jorge's condition becomes apparent. The narrative reveals that the boy's world has been brutally destroyed, his wide blue eyes reflecting the haunting vision of loss. Stangar appears distraught and fearful as he swiftly reaches for a weapon, displaying desperate urgency. He screams in desperation, pleading for the violence to stop as overwhelming emotions consume him. In a final act of panic, he wields his sword with a distressed cry, caught in a whirlwind of chaotic emotions and actions as his reality crumbles around him. Stangar swings his sword with ferocious determination, the swift motion emphasized by the sound of steel cutting air. Godin reacts with shock and disbelief, questioning how a boy from the slums could have learned to execute a sword arc technique. The white-haired knight reflects on the impressive skill displayed, surprised by such advanced swordsmanship from an unlikely source. Stangar growls fiercely as he attacks, his striking blue eyes filled with desperate resolve as he shouts his deadly intent, creating a high-stakes battle atmosphere. Stangar continues his fierce assault as energy blasts from his sword with explosive force, creating thunderous impacts. Godin observes from a distance, recognizing the boy's natural instinctive combat abilities and marveling at how he twisted his body to avoid attacks. He urgently advises Stangar to breathe to prevent fainting as the battle's intensity takes its toll. The exhausted youth kneels on the ground, struggling with his breath and voicing his discomfort as the chaotic confrontation pushes him to his physical limits. Godin contemplates Stangar's exceptional talent, acknowledging it's too valuable to simply destroy, even as he prepares for their inevitable future confrontation. The two face each other with swords drawn in a moment of tense standoff, Godin's scarred face displaying a knowing smirk. He warns the kneeling, wounded Stangar about the nature of knightly rewards, emphasizing that knights only accept fair compensation for their deeds. The emotional tension layers deep as anticipation and struggle define this critical moment between teacher and student. Stangar defiantly reveals his true identity, declaring that his name isn't Stangar and he's not 42 years old, admitting he lied to obtain something valuable. Godin calmly states he's taking something with him as both a fair reward and symbol of victory, his cold tone emphasizing his superiority. The tension reaches its peak as Stangar threatens to kill his opponent, while Godin maintains his chilling composure despite his visible wounds. The power struggle culminates as Godin turns away confidently, asserting his dominance over the desperate young fighter. Stangar kneels on the ground with fierce determination, his pained expression showing both frustration and anger as he grits his teeth. He swears vengeance, declaring he'll kill Godin if it's the last thing he does as his emotions reach a boiling point. Godin strides away confidently in his tattered cloak, dismissing the youth's threats while Stangar continues shouting angrily behind him. The scene emphasizes the confrontation's aftermath, with Stangar's desperate cries for justice echoing as his enemy departs, leaving him powerless but unbroken in his resolve. Stangar struggles to support Jemina, the red-haired girl in her flowing red dress, as they make their way down the dimly lit, snow-covered street. The blonde youth appears pale and breathes heavily, clearly in pain as he grips his injured side where blood seeps through his clothing. Jemina looks worried, glancing back at him with concern as they limp forward together. The sounds of their labored movement echo through the cold air as Stangar fights through his injuries to protect her, their weakened state emphasizing the danger they've barely escaped. In the dimly lit, rustic room, a commanding woman with long black hair and a dark robe stands over the injured Stangar, who sits on the ground with his head bowed. She demands that he get up, her stern expression hardening as she insists he rise or die where he sits. The blond youth appears pale and blood-stained, glancing up briefly with a mix of pain and reluctance. As the woman adopts a more forceful demeanor, frowning deeply, she commands him to snap out of his despair, creating sudden intensity as the scene transitions to show his startled, vulnerable face. The striking woman with long black hair and revealing outfit questions Stangar about the difference between the wealthy across the street and slum dwellers like them. She asserts that the key difference is opportunity. The rich can afford to fail and try again, while those in the slums cannot. Her expression conveys both disdain and determination as she explains this harsh reality. Stangar, kneeling before her with contemplative blue eyes, acknowledges that the wealthy have the luxury of second chances, recognizing the brutal class disparity that defines their world. The woman gestures grimly toward the fallen bodies surrounding them, emphasizing that this carnage represents the result of just one failure. Stangar clutches his clothing in despair, acknowledging that one mistake means death in the life they were born into. The room filled with shadows and corpses reinforces her point about the deadly stakes of their existence. She warns him not to waste his only opportunity, urging him to rise from his despair. The atmosphere grows electric as she grabs his shoulder, staring directly into his eyes with desperate intensity as she softly commands him to get up. Stangar clutches his hand with determination, declaring he won't let his story end here. Jemina, now in her elegant white blouse and red skirt, asks if he's okay and whether they should slow their pace. He reassures her that he's fine and they should keep moving. Suddenly spotting someone in the shadows, he exclaims that he's found them. Jemina urgently reveals she's located the kid who worked for Jorge, but panic sets in as she shouts for them to run. 3 armed men appear in the background, alert and dangerous, as the duo darts away together into the night. Stangar and Jemina dash through the dimly lit alley, urgency marking their faces as they attempt to escape their determined pursuers. The red-haired woman guides the tense youth through the narrow passages, while several figures with angry expressions chase after them. One pursuer with a shaved head and scowl shouts angrily about finding them, clearly intent on capturing the fleeing duo. The group splits up to search every corner of the area, their methodical approach creating an atmosphere of mounting danger as the chase intensifies through the maze-like streets. 2 armed pursuers rush into the dark alley, calling for their companions to spread out and continue searching for the fugitives. Stangar, sweating and anxious, expresses his fear that they'll never escape their relentless hunters. Jemina responds with calm determination, telling him to stay put while she assesses their situation. The scene captures their desperation as they face a heavy wooden door that seems to block their path to safety. The urgency of their predicament is emphasized by the sounds of movement and the aggressive pursuit closing in around them. Stangar insists he'll find a way out despite their dangerous situation, acknowledging that their pursuers are close behind them. Jemina vehemently declares she won't leave his side, her expression filled with fear and determination as she argues against his suggestion to flee alone. She reminds him of his promise to Marcella, that she would only walk with him briefly before slipping away on her own. Stangar urges her to reach the convent before sunrise, revealing his frustration with her stubbornness as emotional tension builds between them, her eyes glistening with unshed tears at the prospect of separation. In the stone-walled room, Stangar jolts with alarm upon hearing unexpected sounds while Jemina reaches for a nearby knife, her face showing a mixture of fear and determination. A rugged, bearded man emerges holding a lantern, questioning the presence of the 2 young intruders in his space. Jemina feels threatened and yells at him not to move, clutching the knife tightly as panic fills her wide eyes. The older man retorts angrily, expressing disbelief at their behavior while asserting his authority as the rightful owner of the house, creating a tense standoff in the dimly lit interior. Jemina holds her knife with fierce resolve, shouting warnings at the elder man not to move as she threatens to stab him. Stangar stands anxiously beside her, his concerned expression showing his worry about the escalating situation. The bearded man remains calm, yet assessing, acknowledging their difficult circumstances while advising Jemina to lower her weapon. The atmosphere crackles with tension as she demands he hand over a sword, emphasizing her desperation with an explosive sound effect. Her fierce determination contrasts with Stangar's visible anxiety as they face this unexpected obstacle to their escape. In the dimly lit smithy, the elder man exhibits shock as Jemina demands the sword hanging in front of his workshop. She argues that the world outside the city is equally dangerous, justifying their desperate actions. Stangar pleads with her to put the knife away, his anxiety evident as the confrontation escalates. Jemina refuses to back down, shouting that she's not messing around and demanding he hurry. She explains that stealing is how people survive in the slums, reflecting the harsh realities of their world where desperation drives people to extreme measures for survival. Jemina's fierce expression conveys her rage as she shrieks about how pitiful their situation has become, her intensity contrasting with the elder man's shocked disapproval. The young man with platinum hair clutches a large blade tightly, showing signs of agitation as he growls and desperately calls out for Jemina. The emotional atmosphere thickens as both young people reveal their desperate resolve in the face of their dire circumstances. The smithy becomes a pressure cooker of tension as their desperation reaches its breaking point in this confrontation with the bewildered craftsman. The elder man's weathered face displays serious concern as he witnesses the chaotic scene unfolding before him. A sharp dagger slices through the air with a threatening slash, heightening the sense of impending violence. Stangar watches intently with his striking blue eyes, his expression mixing concern with determination. Jemina fiercely prepares for action, her intense emotions driving her to extreme measures as she grabs her hair in frustration. In a moment of solemn resolve, she promises the old man that she will pay him back, her vow carrying the weight of desperation and responsibility. Jemina pleads desperately with tears in her wide eyes, insisting she'll pay the smith back later and swearing on her promise. The muscular older man stands skeptically with his lantern, clearly doubting her ability to keep such a vow. She grips her red hair as she stands before him, begging him to give Stangar the sword he needs. When asked if he's leaving, Stangar confirms with simple resignation. The heavy atmosphere in the chaotic smithy reflects their desperate circumstances, as Jemina's emotional plea represents their last hope for obtaining the weapon that could mean the difference between life and death. The old blacksmith sighs heavily, his weathered face showing years of frustration as he calls the desperate pair a nuisance. Stangar commands Jemina to follow him, his confident voice cutting through the tension. Outside, a cart rattles ominously through the snow-covered streets, its destination unknown as shadows of buildings loom threateningly in the darkness. In the snowy streets, the hooded blacksmith confronts workers pushing a garbage cart, complaining about the overwhelming stench and blocked entrance. Two young men labor with their load as the blacksmith demands to know why they're dumping trash so late. The workers grow defensive about their meager payment, creating a volatile atmosphere of mounting anger and desperation. A young man with dark hair attempts to reassure the elderly blacksmith, explaining he hired help to push the heavy cart. The hooded figure emerges from the shadows, weapon drawn, offering mercy only because the old man is the slum's only blacksmith. Tension crackles as the armed stranger warns against any sudden movements, threatening to sever limbs. Vlad grips his glowing sword, facing the tense standoff in the snowy landscape. The elderly blacksmith expresses his frustration while a grimy boy complains about wanting food. The old man demands information about a missing blonde boy, but Vlad remains firm with his blade pointed forward, ready to confront whatever comes next. The middle-aged man impatiently pleads for permission to leave, while Vlad maintains his guard with the glowing sword. A white-haired boy with striking blue eyes receives orders to check the cart, though he's warned it will create a mess. The serious atmosphere suggests blocked entrances and dangerous routes ahead. Vlad observes the massive pile of trash with his wooden stick, commenting on the sheer volume of waste. His expression shifts to frustration as he grips the stick tightly, telling someone not to blame him for what he must do. With steely determination, he forces the stick down with a decisive stab, taking action despite his reluctance. In the dark, snowy environment, a distressed young man grips his head as revelations about Harvin unfold. The older man discusses suspicions about someone physically limited setting a boat afloat on the river. Vlad analyzes the situation with his wooden stick ready, as urgent sound effects emphasize the gravity of their riverside investigation. The elderly blacksmith stands rigidly in his fur-lined coat, while Vlad tends to his stick. A disheveled blond boy lies prone, clutching his head in distress and deep contemplation. Othar emerges with a glowing aura, expressing gratitude as he prepares for confrontation. A shadowy figure materializes from amidst, creating an ominous sense of foreboding. At the imposing castle gate leading to the city's dump, the elderly blacksmith bids farewell to Vlad with solemn concern. Vlad, his red hair bright against the snowy backdrop, shows emotion as he wishes the old man well. The wind howls through the scene as they finally reach their destination outside the city walls. A young boy with striking red hair clasps his hands in a pleading gesture, deeply emotional about something bought with a young lady's tears. The brilliant moon illuminates snowy mountains as mysterious light shimmers in the darkness. A blond young man gazes upward with determination, gripping a gleaming sword as he prepares for what lies ahead. In a dark cave, Vlad sits holding his sword as he questions the identity of the red-haired boy who has been guiding his combat training. The boy admits he doesn't know who he is, creating confusion about their mystical connection. Vlad expresses bewilderment that someone without memories has been instructing him in swordplay, adding tension to their supernatural bond. Vlad declares his fear of being a nobody, his fierce expression reflecting anger and determination in the moonlit cave. A shadowy figure looms behind him as the mystical sword glows with ethereal light. The mysterious mentor agrees to teach Vlad everything he knows about sword fighting, marking a pivotal moment in the young warrior's journey toward mastery. The title card for the stellar Swordmaster introduces the next phase of the story. The scene transitions to a snowy military camp nestled among towering mountains, where armored soldiers move between tents and equipment. A strategic planning session unfolds as an elegant hand taps carefully on a map with chess pieces, suggesting meticulous preparation for upcoming conflicts. Joseph Ezid sits regally on his throne-like chair, draped in an impressive black fur cloak as he smirks about how easy everything seems. His loyal guard Zaire returns and reports his arrival, but Joseph immediately notices something troubling his subordinate. The second son of House Vizid leans forward with curiosity, asking what weighs on Zaire's mind. In his lavishly decorated chamber, Joseph listens as his bearded soldier reports good progress in exterminating monsters with minimal casualties among their forces. However, Joseph's expression grows increasingly concerned as he reflects on his own mediocre results and deserters. He worries that his leadership abilities will be questioned by his father and family members, especially his older half-brother Rutger. Joseph reflects on the Vizid family's warrior legacy, acknowledging his lack of skilled fighters except for Zaire. The atmosphere turns tense when a cloaked mercenary approaches with suspicions about someone among their ranks. The bearded figure in brown robes hints at treachery possibly connected to Rutger, while Joseph maintains his composure despite the troubling implications. A scarred figure with an eye patch expresses skepticism about someone's capabilities, promising Joseph will understand when he sees for himself. A grinning, bloodied man taunts menacingly while Joseph wipes his mouth with disdain, calling the display pathetic. The scene shifts to show-bound green-skinned creatures, revealing the brutal reality of their training methods and Joseph's contempt for weakness. In the dimly lit training area, Joseph critiques the appalling swordsmanship displayed by the injured green-skinned trainees. His expert eye notes that while most results are terrible, some show slight improvement over others. The master contemplates the inconsistent outcomes despite similar starting points, questioning whether all these results stem from a single person's training efforts. Joseph questions whether all the training results come from one person, as his subordinate confirms the timeline spans from yesterday to a month ago. A dark-robed man holds a piece of paper in shock, exclaiming that such rapid improvement is impossible. The snowy landscape outside contrasts sharply with the tense atmosphere inside as they grapple with this mysterious individual's unprecedented progress. Blood splatters across the snowy battlefield as soldiers engage ferocious humanoid creatures in brutal combat. A warrior shouts his battle cry while swinging his sword, as the armored commander orders his troops to close in and prevent any escapes. The confident leader grins smugly as he raises his spear, declaring victory is at hand while motivating his men to finish off the remaining monsters. A blonde warrior grips his spear with fury while his comrades show uncertainty about the unfolding situation. Suddenly, a massive giant with glowing red eyes appears, wielding an enormous club that creates powerful gusts as it swings. The ground shakes with a thunderous impact as nearby fighters tremble before the towering beast's overwhelming presence. Two young warriors brace themselves as an ominous, roaring sound fills the air on the chaotic battlefield. A hulking beast emerges with its mouth wide in a terrifying roar, showcasing rows of serrated teeth. Soldiers retreat in panic as the creature stomps forward, crushing everything in its path while a mounted figure calmly observes the approaching swarm of monsters. A stout commander with a thick mustache angrily demands his warriors return to the front line, questioning their commitment to earning their pay. The mercenaries retort that they weren't warned about facing a hobgoblin and suggest he should have hired more expensive help. Tension explodes as one warrior prepares for confrontation, followed by a powerful slam as chaos erupts on the battlefield. The irritated commander rides his brown horse through the snowy terrain, expressing his annoyance with a dismissive grunt. A warrior notices someone approaching and exclaims excitedly that it's Lyman the Worshipper. Vlad appears with determination, his blonde hair and blue eyes striking against the cold air as he declares his readiness, suggesting this moment will be different from before. Vlad dashes forward with fierce focus, his red hooded cape flowing as he strikes his muscular opponent. Blood flows from the enemy's wounded arm, but Vlad realizes his cut was too shallow to be effective. The large opponent grimaces in pain while Vlad urgently shouts for others to get away, recognizing the danger isn't over yet. Vlad expresses his frustration at failing again as he slides across the snowy ground with sword in hand. An unseen mentor chastises him for not following instructions, but Vlad sarcastically retorts that instant mastery would make him a genius. He insists he's finding his own way as heavy footsteps echo nearby, indicating the ongoing threat from his massive opponent. The intense battle continues as Vlad's muscular adversary screams, while swinging a bat-like weapon with tremendous force. Vlad evades the attack with focused determination, his sharp blue eyes tracking every movement as wind swirls around them. The enemy's rage escalates into a powerful roar as light snow continues falling around their high-stakes confrontation. Vlad leaps backward to avoid his opponent's devastating bat swing, while dark mist surrounds the battleground. The red-eyed enemy shudders with anticipation as Vlad grips his sword tightly, making a solemn vow that this time he will slice through his target. As he lunges forward with swift motion, both combatants prepare for their decisive clash. Zaire commands his subordinate to gather comprehensive information about Lyman the Worshipper, his authority clear in his luxurious outfit. The muscular soldier responds respectfully as Zaire expresses disbelief at what he's witnessing. He reflects on how Lyman's clumsy, amateurish sword strikes have transformed dramatically in less than a month, finding the rapid improvement almost impossible to believe. Blood splatters as a pale-haired warrior with blue eyes effortlessly dispatches his enemies, declaring them all worthless with cold dismissal. His subordinates expressed disappointment at finding no valuable loot among the slain creatures, especially hoping the hobgoblin would yield something worthwhile. The commanding warrior orders his men to stop complaining and collect the monster corpses from their successful battle. In the snowy outdoor setting, the pale-haired warrior discusses his future plans with a dark-haired man in a green vest. The man suggests they work together since the expedition is nearly over, but the warrior responds with disdain, saying he refuses to even make eye contact with crooks. Their conversation turns tense as the topic shifts to the warrior's potentially compromised mercenary badge. The pale-haired warrior warns that loose tongues lead to death as the dark-haired man expresses frustration at his harsh treatment. Despite claiming he was only trying to help, the man is sarcastically threatened with decapitation if he doesn't finish packing quickly. The tension escalates as the warrior makes it clear he'll need to keep a closer eye on this troublesome individual in the future. In the serene, snowy forest, the pale-haired warrior kneels solemnly with his sword, appearing to pray or reflect deeply. Other warriors observe him with admiration, commenting on his devotion and speculating about his noble background. They express feelings of inferiority, believing he comes from a different class of people entirely, as the stark landscape emphasizes his solitary contemplation. Vlad appears confused as his mystical instructor attempts to teach him about combat techniques, using bizarre terminology like wish and whoosh. The instructor emphasizes surprise attacks while making exaggerated gestures with his sword, but Vlad struggles to comprehend the cryptic explanations. 3 amused onlookers watch the comical training session unfold under the bright blue sky, entertained by the absurd lesson. At the military campsite filled with tents, Vlad skeptically examines his bowl of steaming meat stew, questioning its contents. A brown-cloaked soldier casually dismisses his concerns, pointing out that free meat shouldn't be questioned. The lighthearted atmosphere continues as soldiers enjoy their meal, noting they work for the prestigious Destined family, which explains the generous food provisions. Vlad walks thoughtfully through the snowy campsite, pondering whether to visit the priest again, while another soldier jokingly suggests it's too late for prayers. He enters Father Andrea's warmly lit tent, where the gray-haired priest greets him warmly. Their casual conversation reveals Vlad's claim that no cold can touch him in the Lord's embrace, mixing spiritual devotion with subtle skepticism. In a cozy dining area, Father Andrea playfully invites Vlad to join him and young Jean for breakfast, commenting that Vlad sounds more like a priest than he does. The 3 gather around a table laden with bread and food as Father Andrea leads them in prayer. The scene captures a tranquil morning moment filled with genuine camaraderie and spiritual community among the unlikely companions. Vlad bows his head in contemplation, recognizing Father Andrea's genuine sincerity despite the surrounding misery. The kind priest reflects on his duty to guide this young warrior doomed to roam bloody battlefields until death, seeing their connection as a divine gift. Their shared moment over fresh wheat bread and soup radiates warmth and hope, offering respite from the harsh realities outside. At the wooden breakfast table, Vlad chews thoughtfully while Father Andrea discusses his swordsmanship skills and reveals he recommended Vlad to Lord Zaire. The priest's gentle smile shows his approval of Vlad's character as he explains the prestigious opportunity. Father Andrea emphasizes the renowned Destined family's northern influence, suggesting this position will greatly enhance Vlad's prospects for the future. Sitting alone in the snowy forest, Vlad anxiously realizes he may have stood out too much during his training. His mystical mentor explains that learning the secret sword technique requires actual practice, making discretion impossible. Vlad reflects on whether he got too close to the priest, feeling the weight of his precarious situation as he contemplates his next moves. Vlad contemplates fleeing as he worries about Father Andrea's reputation and potential investigation into his background. His dark-haired companion reassures him about maintaining his false identity, but Vlad fears being discovered for both identity fraud and murder. The tension between staying to maintain his cover and escaping before exposure creates a pivotal moment of decision in the snowy woodland. Vlad tenses as his mystical companion warns of an approaching elite knight, forcing him to draw his sword in the serene forest. The dark-haired knight with an eye patch and green cloak observes Vlad with interest, noting his sharp awareness. Tension hangs heavy in the snowy air as both warriors assess each other, preparing for an encounter that could determine Vlad's fate. Vlad regrets not fleeing earlier as the confident knight approaches with mocking words about maintaining neutral expressions in card games. Despite his tension, Vlad acknowledges hearing about the knights coming from Father Andrea, though he didn't expect such swift arrival. The armored knight dismisses Vlad's courage as childish before commanding him to follow, indicating a shift in their encounter's direction. Vlad considers fleeing, but hears his inner voice warn that the knight could behead him before he takes 3 steps. Realizing he has no choice, Vlad grips his sword tightly as his fear becomes palpable. A dark-haired man in a fur-trimmed cloak approaches warmly, indicating he's been waiting for Vlad, suggesting this meeting was planned all along. In an elegant room with mirrors and curtains, Vlad speaks earnestly to Lord Joseph about everyone's gratitude for his kindness. The robust Lord asks for confirmation of Vlad's name while maintaining his authoritative presence. Sudden conflict erupts with a sharp smack sound, causing Vlad to show surprise as the tension in the formal meeting dramatically escalates. Vlad's frustration shows as sweat slides down his face, declaring he cannot stand lies. Lord Joseph and his associates reveal they know Vlad's true identity as Vlad of Skora, son of a prostitute. The atmosphere grows heavier as they discuss their investigation into his background, having identified his mother but unable to determine his father's identity, exposing the dark secrets of his past. A dark-haired interrogator questions Vlad about his father's identity, prompting Vlad to retort sharply about the absurdity of asking a prostitute's son such questions. A brown-haired armored figure charges forward, catching Vlad off guard and causing him to slump in distress. Despite the chaos, Vlad regains his composure and admits he actually found the earlier comment amusing, showing his resilience. The powerful interrogator suggests Vlad killed a Freemason and stole his badge, questioning where he learned his sword-fighting skills. Vlad appears emotionally charged and drenched in sweat as the man claims to already know why he fled from Shiral. A dark-haired figure suddenly draws his sword with a sharp ring, startling Vlad, whose expression shifts to intense focus and anger. Vlad reveals he learned his sword fighting from a master who appeared and vanished like lightning, never revealing his name. The dark-haired interrogator watches with curiosity as Vlad explains this was a secret technique that cannot be taught to anyone else. Lightning effects punctuate the scene as Vlad's revelation about his mysterious training creates an atmosphere charged with supernatural implications. The interrogator apologizes for his rough treatment, impressed that Vlad shows no hesitation in his eyes despite the intense questioning. He reveals he's in a serious bind and proposes something to Vlad, suggesting he consider a better future. As the formal atmosphere of the noble's chamber frames their conversation, the question remains whether Vlad's story about his mysterious Swordmaster has been believed. The interrogation takes an unexpected turn as Lyman finds himself in deadly combat with Zaire. Steel meets steel in a brilliant clash as the blonde warrior leaps through the air, his sword striking sparks against his opponent's blade. Snow falls around them as observers watch the duel unfold, noting how Zaire holds back his true power against the younger fighter. Spectators discuss Lyman's impressive skills as he battles Zaire, wondering if he'll become the Night Squire. But Zaire's patience wears thin as he accuses Lyman of arrogance, questioning how someone with such pathetic abilities dares stand confidently before Lord Joseph. Lyman strains against Zaire's powerful strikes, realizing his opponent operates on an entirely different level. Zaire prepares to escalate the duel, his determination evident as he re-engages. Lyman's piercing blue eyes narrow with focus as their blades clash with thunderous impact. Metal scrapes against metal in the frigid air, each strike echoing through the snowy arena as both warriors showcase their deadly precision. Against all odds, Lyman successfully parries one of Zaire's attacks, drawing impressed reactions from the spectators. The young warrior humbly admits he didn't truly earn the hit, recognizing that Zaire allowed the parry. The bearded knight acknowledges Lyman's improvement with gruff approval, though Lyman realizes he must endure these brutal training sessions daily. The morning sparring session ends as Zaire walks away, advising Lyman to avoid prolonged exposure to the cold. Lyman reflects in frustration, wondering why no guidance follows the brutal training. He realizes that sometimes taking a beating is the best teacher, but questions why no one offers support during these grueling sessions. In the snowy training grounds, two figures discuss Lyman's potential. Despite his arrogance, they recognize his promise, noting that if he were noble-born, even the Count would take interest. However, his upbringing in the slums has left him without knowledge of his proper place in society's hierarchy. The conversation grows tense as Zaire declares that a warrior without loyalty cannot be trusted. The elegant nobleman dismisses the notion, preferring Lyman's honest feelings over false submission. A silver-haired figure emerges, stating he has something important to accomplish, as plans form around mutual benefit and carefully constructed alliances. Dark metaphors emerge as they compare Lyman to a wolf, arrogant, untrustworthy, and dangerous. The nobleman reveals his patient strategy, explaining that it takes time to build a cage large enough to trick a wolf into believing it's free. His cunning plan unfolds with calculating precision. In the cold, misty forest, a guard shivers while expressing concern about Vlad's promotion to Zaire's squire. He regrets not convincing his friend to flee earlier, though acknowledges Vlad's luck in avoiding the freezing duties. Sir Roderick approaches, commanding presence evident as he inquires about the expedition's status. The guard assures Sir Roderick of his reliability, while sarcastically noting another soldier's rigid nature. Thinking he can finally rest, the guard leans against a tree, but his relief is short-lived. A sudden realization strikes. Someone unexpected remains nearby, shattering his moment of peace. Confusion grips the dark-haired guard as a mysterious figure speaks of looking for a child. He raises his spear defensively, questioning the strange words and wondering who the figure addresses. His bewilderment turns to anger as he shouts at the mysterious woman, declaring he's not her child. The guard watches in puzzlement as the mysterious figure suddenly walks away, heading in the wrong direction from the campsite. His confusion deepens when an eerie presence makes itself known. Purple energy swirls ominously as shadows loom, filling the air with an overwhelming sense of supernatural dread. Lyman stands in the snowy landscape, his whole body aching from the rigorous training with Zaire. He complains about his mentor's brutal methods, suspecting Zaire simply enjoys beating him up. A companion emphasizes the value of training with such a renowned knight, reminding Lyman how fortunate he is despite the pain. Gott urgently approaches Lyman, whispering for a private conversation. The concerned soldier reveals he has just returned and needs to discuss something critical. When Lyman questions the timing of the expeditionary force's arrival, Gott's expression grows grave as he prepares to share disturbing news. Gott reveals the forest's cursed nature to a confused Lyman, explaining that the missing soldiers didn't desert, they were taken. He insists the forest itself consumed them, claiming that countless men have vanished rather than abandoned their well-paying positions. The supernatural threat becomes terrifyingly clear. The situation escalates as Gott reveals that even a knight went missing the previous night, Sir Roderick himself. Lyman reacts with shock to this news while Gott confirms his fears. After gathering information on his return journey, Gott emphasizes the grim pattern. Everyone who entered the forest has disappeared without a trace. Lyman contemplates the disturbing news while Gott expresses regret about not fleeing immediately. Riders approach in the background as discussions turn to trust and reliability. The atmosphere grows tense as they weigh the credibility of Gott's claims against the mounting evidence of supernatural danger threatening the expedition. Zaya reflects on the disturbing pattern God has revealed, noting that all missing soldiers had black hair. Despite his unease about the situation, the one-eyed knight realizes he cannot stay behind. With Roderick missing, someone even stronger must lead the remaining troops into the cursed forest. Ern, Sir Roderick's squire, reports to the masked commander that their best hunters found no trace of the missing knight in the forest. Not even a footprint remains despite thorough searching by skilled mercenaries. The commander orders search parties to divide into groups of 3, expanding their dangerous mission into the cursed woods. Ern protests the unfairness of being tricked into the dangerous mission, accusing others of taking advantage of his goodwill. Lyman coldly dismisses his complaints and suggests beating information from passers-by, if necessary. The dark-haired commander's frustration boils over as he declares their efforts absolutely useless. As daylight fades, the bearded commander expresses concern about returning empty-handed. Lyman reports that their quarry likely hasn't crossed the river, but the commander questions whether the far side was even searched. Realizing the oversight, he orders mercenaries to cross the river in search of Roderick and the mysterious woman. At the partially frozen river, the group assesses the ice's stability. A soldier tests it with a stick, reporting that while not completely solid, crossing would be difficult. Zaire orders the search party to spread out and examine the opposite shore, expanding their dangerous mission across the treacherous frozen water. The nervous soldier expresses his growing dread about crossing the river, while Lyman dismisses his fears as mere cowardice. The anxious man insists he's not a genius warrior like Lyman, explaining that people like him rely on survival instincts. His instincts scream that crossing the frozen river is a deadly mistake. Tensions escalate as Lyman threatens the fearful soldier with a painful death if he runs away, pointing out how suspicious fleeing would appear. The terrified man struggles with the impossible choice while carefully treading across the thinning ice. Suddenly, a loud crack echoes through the air, confirming his worst fears. The soldier's panic intensifies as he fears the ice will break, prompting Lyman's harsh threat to throw him in the water himself. As the frightened man loses his balance and falls with a terrified scream, Lyman's cold determination becomes clear. His blue eyes gleam dangerously as he pushes forward despite the mounting peril. Horror strikes as the soldier discovers corpses trapped beneath the ice, his screams piercing the air. The gruesome sight of dead bodies frozen in the water sends the entire group into panic. The ice begins cracking with an ominous roar as soldiers realize they've walked directly into a supernatural trap. Chaos erupts as undead creatures emerge from beneath the breaking ice, surrounding the trapped soldiers. Grotesque figures with skeletal faces claw their way to the surface as the men scream in terror. Zaire's grim realization cuts through the panic. They've been deliberately led into a carefully prepared trap. A sinister figure observes the carnage with cold satisfaction, noting how carefully the trap was prepared as if someone knew they were coming. The night brings forth creatures not meant for the living realm. Undead horrors with glowing eyes emerge from the darkness, their haunting presence confirming the supernatural nature of this deadly ambush. In a dimly lit chapel, Father Andrea kneels in prayer, thanking God for safety and seeking divine guidance. A young boy joins him in reverence as the priest's prayers are interrupted by a mystical phenomenon. A large chalice on the altar begins glowing ominously, its light accompanied by an eerie sound that fills the sacred space with dread. A haunting whisper echoes across the snowy mountainous landscape as ethereal feet hover above the ground. A spectral figure cloaked in vibrant purple searches desperately, her distressed voice calling out for her lost child. The mysterious presence creates an eerie atmosphere that suggests supernatural forces are converging on this cursed night. Terror erupts as a white-haired soldier screams for his captain, while grotesque, undead creatures attack with bloodthirsty fury. A pale figure with glowing eyes slashes violently through the chaos, its mouth opened in a gruesome scream. The horrifying scene unfolds with shadowy figures roaring in rage, creating an atmosphere of pure nightmare. The white-haired warrior desperately tries to rally his panicked companion, ordering him to grab his spear and fight. But the dark-haired soldier clutches his throat in terror, stammering that he cannot continue. Blood spatters around them as the blonde fighter maintains his stern command, urging his ally to overcome panic and survive. The battle intensifies as the white-haired warrior strikes swiftly, blood splattering across the battlefield. Zaire, now wearing armor and his signature green scarf, grimly acknowledges the endless nature of their enemies. Despite the chaos and screaming around him, he recognizes the trap's specific design and purpose with calculating clarity. Zaire charges forward with no time for hesitation, his green sword glowing with supernatural energy. The bearded knight cuts through multiple ominous figures with distorted, pained expressions, his fierce determination contrasting sharply with his enemy's grotesque appearances. The battlefield erupts with dynamic energy as the clash reaches its climax. Soldiers rally around their protector, calling for others to gather as the knight demonstrates his power. Green light swirls dramatically as Vlad of Skoara is confronted with an ultimatum. It's time to fulfill his end of their mysterious agreement. The tension builds as past bargains come due amid the supernatural chaos. Zaire urgently requests orders from his superior while gripping his sword tightly. He's commanded to return to base immediately and defend Lord Joseph until reinforcements arrive. Accepting the mission with resolute determination, Zaire dashes away as soldiers pray for Lord Joseph's safety, the green magical energy illuminating their desperate situation. Violence erupts as armed men stomp down on someone, eliciting pained groans from their victim. Roderick appears, sword ready, his focused expression showing determination as he turns toward an off-screen threat. His shock is evident as he recognizes something significant, grimly acknowledging that he has arrived too late to prevent a crucial event. Lord Joseph sits at his desk when chaos erupts outside, causing him to react with shock and alarm. His attendant Borden appears agitated, asking if they're under attack as screams and violence echo through the night. The lavish study becomes a refuge of fear as the supernatural threat closes in on the noble estate. Joseph's fury explodes as he berates Borden for arriving without a sword, expressing envy for his brother's better preparation. The stocky attendant stammers apologies while soldiers enter, responding to their lord's commanding presence. The tension peaks as Joseph's anger reveals deeper family rivalries amid the crisis. Father Andrea arrives with ominous news, declaring that something evil has descended upon them. He shows Joseph a holy Bible whose words shake like leaves in the wind, printed with sacred ink that trembles before supernatural forces. When Joseph asks if the threat can be stopped, the priest admits he's no exorcist. Father Andrea vows to use his holy power to hold the evil at bay, though he doubts its effectiveness against such a powerful foe. Joseph acknowledges that none of their remaining knights have created their own world of power. As urgency builds, Joseph orders quick action while mist begins forming outside, alarming those who spot it. Panic spreads as people scream in terror, with some shouting that they're not someone's child, suggesting the mist causes disturbing delusions. Joseph observes the unnatural phenomenon with growing concern, noting how the supernatural fog doesn't appear natural. A haunting voice calling for her child echoes through the chaos. A woman's anguished voice calls desperately for her dear child as supernatural terror grips everyone present. An elderly priest and young boy show fear and confusion while three men display varying degrees of concern. Ghostly feet move weightlessly through the mist as a spectral woman in white searches with growing desperation. The ethereal woman in white continues her search, asking if anyone is there while men in dark cloaks watch with alarm. A grotesque figure with glowing eyes and a wide grin declares that it has found someone at last. A shadowy claw reaches out as a man with black hair solemnly whispers about his child. Horror reaches its peak as a man with dark hair becomes engulfed in flames, screaming in agony. A woman in white cries out desperately for her sweet child, while an elderly priest prays frantically with trembling hands. A young boy adds his anguished voice to the chorus of suffering in this nightmarish scene. Golden light bathes the scene as two boys stand with a mysterious cloaked figure who poses in ritualistic manner. A dark-haired man contemplates that only Zaire possesses the strength to face the supernatural threat. The ghostly figure continues crying for her child amid flames and despair as someone declares this to be a deadly curse. Cade confronts the deadly curse aimed directly at him, wondering who could be behind such evil. Jean coughs violently, covered in sweat and pain, while an elder encourages him to stay strong, promising that the sun will eventually rise. Golden light emanates from Cade's hand as he unleashes his magical power against the supernatural threat. A young boy bursts upward, glowing with brilliant golden light as he casts a powerful spell. The cloaked figure watches with dread and authority as tensions reach their breaking point. Characters express panic about Father Andreas reaching his limit, with hymns ending soon and dawn seeming impossibly far away. The cloaked figure with skull-like features screams in startled surprise at the boy's glowing ascension. A blonde warrior with intense blue eyes wields his sword with determination, embodying the surge of power. However, dialogue reveals that ordinary weapons cannot harm a spirit activated by curse, requiring special means to handle such supernatural threats. Standing atop a misty cliff, the boy asks what he should do, while the blonde warrior questions if he knows how to use aura. When the boy responds that he must be joking, a tense silence follows. The blonde suggests borrowing the boy's body, and suddenly the young fighter glows with mystical blue energy, sword ready for the final confrontation. In a misty cliffside environment, the blonde warrior questions if their desperate plan is even possible. Vlad admits he knows how to use aura, but doubts he can activate it with another's body. With death looming if they fail, Vlad accepts the risk despite warnings of temporary paralysis. His resolve hardens as he declares his commitment to a promise made to Joseph. Standing amid the thick fog with sword in hand, the blonde warrior makes a pivotal decision. He declares there is something he must accomplish, offering his trust rather than blind allegiance. As another figure with flowing black hair responds with respect, the atmosphere crackles with the weight of their newfound understanding and mutual commitment. A dark-haired figure screams in rage while the ghostly warrior grimaces, clutching his right eye in pain. A commanding voice shouts for him to close his right eye as the atmosphere rumbles with mystical energy. The scene shifts dramatically to reveal the voice's world, suggesting they've entered a profound spiritual realm beyond the physical battlefield. The blonde warrior launches into a devastating attack, surrounded by crackling blue energy as he leaps through the air. His electrified sword hurtles forward with a sizzling sound, eyes glowing with supernatural power. The menacing white-skinned creature with black features screams in anguish, establishing a fierce, supernatural confrontation between opposing forces. The blonde warrior executes a powerful slash amid blue energy, the sound echoing across the battlefield. Witnesses, including a brown-haired boy and elderly man, recoil in shock at the display of supernatural power. The warrior's attack takes its toll as he bows his head and groans, the blue energy flickering around him in exhaustion. Vlad screams in agony as purple lightning courses through his armored form, the supernatural energy exacting a terrible price. A brown-haired companion trembles beside him, deeply affected by Vlad's pain. Observers recognize the unmistakable mark of aura, while a woman's voice desperately cries out for her child. Dark energy coiling around her hand as the mystical battlefield crackles with tension. Vlad crawls desperately across the ground, his dark armor gleaming as he struggles with his injuries. Joseph rushes to his aid, urgently telling him to hold on, while a skeletal-faced figure declares ominously about my child. The atmosphere crackles with dark energy as Vlad screams, the dire stakes of their supernatural confrontation becoming painfully clear. Vlad curses his weak body as he struggles to escape a ghoulish grip, crying out for Lord Joseph in desperation. A mustached man pleads for forgiveness for past insults, while Vlad makes a frantic attempt to break free. A horrific figure's anguished scream intensifies the scene as Vlad is violently tossed away from his captor. After a tumultuous crash, Vlad and Father Andrea hit the ground together, both bruised from their struggle. Joseph expresses gratitude for Father Andrea's presence in this dire moment. Vlad, clutching his sword tightly, requests a blessing for his weapon as he prepares to send the supernatural threat back to the underworld, his resolve burning despite his injuries. Father Andrea raises the blessed blade, blood dripping from its edge as he assures Vlad it will defeat their supernatural foe. The dark-haired woman sits on the ground in desperation, her fear-filled face framed by long hair. As Vlad stands confidently with the blessed sword, she reaches out pleading for mercy, the dramatic stakes reaching their climax. The silver-haired young man receives a haunting command to find the woman's child. A grotesque, ghostly figure reveals it only glimpsed something briefly, its eyes filled with dread. The scene shifts to reveal a woman and children trapped behind iron bars in a dungeon, their desperate cries for help echoing through the shadows as they plead from the cold floor. The distraught woman with dark hair cries out desperately for her child to be returned, tears streaming down her face. A vision of a pale, cold hand symbolizes her loss as her child's body grew cold before her eyes. The silver-haired young man solemnly wishes for her to rest in peace as she continues crying out, searching for her lost child. The grieving woman reaches out tearfully, continuing her desperate pleas while a dark figure plunges a weapon, blood splattering around them. The scene transitions dramatically to a breathtaking mountain landscape where the sun breaks over majestic peaks. Her echoed words of "my sweet child" linger as an ominous sound suggests new danger approaching. Against a backdrop of purple hues, a cloaked figure sits cross-legged, their pale face illuminated by an unsettling smile. Dark energy swirls between their outstretched hands before beginning to dissipate in a concerning fog. Their expression shifts to alarm as they declare their connection to the overmind has been severed, indicating a significant loss of power. In a dark, snowy forest, a cloaked figure hunches in thought, wondering if others were attacked. A confident knight with an electric aura confronts him, accusing him of controlling the undead puppets. The scene shifts as another well-dressed man with dark hair questions if this knight is the one they seek, intrigue building around this mysterious warrior. In a snowy landscape, a dark-haired man with bloodstains speaks with an armored knight wearing a green scarf. The knight confirms they've found the source of the curse and the child the woman desperately sought. He grimly notes that the wooden box meant to protect the child became its coffin, planning to have Father Andreas investigate upon their return to Varna. Standing in the snowy landscape, the dark-haired man in his fur-trimmed cloak expresses confidence to the knight about their new recruit. He believes he has found a warrior to fight on his behalf, envisioning a young swordsman glowing brilliantly with potential. The cloaked man declares this recruit will shine more brightly than any other swordsman, hope filling the cold air. The blond young man awakens disheveled, surprised to learn he was unconscious for 3 whole days. Seated on his bed in a fitted gray tunic, he's relieved that Joseph didn't abandon their campsite despite the traumatic events. He reflects on the intense rebound from his supernatural exertion while noting the eerie silence around the camp, pondering others' reactions to recent events. The brown-haired man in green greets the awakening captain with visible relief, worried he might have left. Their banter reveals the man stayed for bonus pay rather than genuine concern, though he did ensure the captain's safe return to camp when he couldn't ride. The lighthearted exchange masks underlying tensions about recent supernatural encounters. Inside a grand tent, the blond young man admits his unfamiliarity with expensive liquor, revealing his background working in a brothel pub. The dark-haired man explains the delicacy is reserved for nobles as they share drinks. Their conversation turns serious as they discuss their agreement, the atmosphere mixing gratitude with underlying tension about trust versus allegiance. The blond young man expresses deep concern about losing his talented recruit, emphasizing his commitment to keeping the boy safe. He declares he must do everything in his power to protect this asset. The dark-haired man responds by placing a glass of red liquid on the table, formally offering compensation and inviting him to join the Vaizid family as proper payment for his deed. Lord Joseph appears deep in thought at his grand table when receiving the report about dismissed mercenaries. Outside, his subordinate discusses staying in Varna to present expedition reports. When Joseph admits it's his first time outside Skawara, a muscular man with an eye patch smirks condescendingly, calling the young noble a country bumpkin, causing visible embarrassment for Joseph. Joseph gives his subordinate a day off to explore Varna while Zaire offers to guide him. As they walk through the cobblestone streets, Joseph thinks sarcastically about Zaire's apparent fondness for him, expressing disdain for their complicated relationship. His plans to indulge in local food are suddenly interrupted when someone grabs his arm, introducing unexpected tension. Young Jean eagerly approaches Joseph, cheerfully asking if he's available because Father Andreas wants to see him. Joseph appears surprised at the mention of Father Andreas's name. The scene transitions to show the magnificent exterior of a grand church with ornate architecture, as Jean leads Joseph toward the entrance with sound effects indicating their movement. Joseph expresses awe at the enormous church, noting it's larger than Skawara's. Jean enthusiastically explains that Varna serves as the religious center while inviting Joseph to wait inside for Father Andreas. As Joseph enters the stunning interior with intricate stained glass, he gasps in amazement at the grandeur, his footsteps echoing through the sacred space. Inside the golden-accented church, Vlad stands contemplatively with his sword, expressing an inexplicable feeling of having sinned. When Father Andreas approaches with his warm smile, Vlad acknowledges him respectfully and thanks him for the invitation. Their exchange blends reverence with camaraderie as soft light filters through stained glass, creating a sacred atmosphere for their meeting. Father Andreas presents Vlad with an identification badge, surprising him with this significant gesture. The elderly priest explains that while Lord Joseph could have issued it, church-issued badges carry more authority since the Lord's grace extends across the continent. Vlad examines the cross-bearing badge with wide eyes, realizing the profound weight of Father Andreas's support and recognition. Father Andreas warmly tells Vlad to come to him whenever he faces trouble, becoming his official guarantor. Vlad, deeply moved, can barely speak the priest's name as the narrative reflects on his transformation. Once a nameless boy from the slums, unregistered at birth, he now has legitimate recognition. As he kneels in the sunlit church, he is no longer simply Vlad of the slums. Sunlight frames Vlad's contemplative face as the scene transitions to showcase the series' title and credits. The bustling trade activities of Skawara unfold with merchants at the harbor and ships moored nearby. Horse riders move along paths leading to Varna, the religious center, as the sun casts a warm glow over both the trading hub and the majestic city beyond. A young man peers from a dark carriage as they arrive at Citramata, the capital city. Grand architecture frames their passage through ornate archways under brilliant blue skies. A stern man with a beard warns that they are now Lord Joseph's guests, emphasizing that any foolish actions would directly insult his honor, establishing the gravity of their situation. In a lavishly decorated room, the stern man instructs the young visitors to behave and avoid snooping around like country bumpkins. He contradictorily mentions handmaidens will bring refreshments, but immediately warns against eating anything to avoid rumors. The blond youth appears confused while his companion expresses disbelief at not being allowed even a bite as the door creaks ominously open. The two young men admire the opulent sitting room, with one exclaiming about the luxury, while the other notes the Vaizid's expensive tastes. The blonde reveals his hope to secretly idle away time here as sounds of movement fill the air. A shadowy figure observes them, declaring they don't recognize the newcomers, introducing an element of surveillance and potential threat. The blond young man recognizes a familiar face, thinking about the resemblance while his companion asks who the newcomer is. He observes that while the figure looks similar to someone he knows, they radiate a completely different energy. The narrative notes this person appears capable of cutting through someone with their gaze alone, establishing an intimidating presence that suggests danger. Gott nervously introduces himself to Vlad, explaining his recent expedition service with Lord Joseph. Vlad confidently questions Gott's identity, having never heard of him before despite his potential as a swordsman. As their dialogue unfolds, Vlad observes life in Gott's eyes and expresses approval, suggesting Joseph has found a promising new recruit worth his attention and respect. Gott holds peanuts while explaining they were instructed not to eat anything, his worried expression showing concern about following orders. Vlad appears perplexed by the refusal, while a dark-haired observer becomes violently agitated, shouting at Gott for turning down an offer from someone clearly important in House Vaizid. The tension escalates as the social implications of Gott's rejection become apparent. In the Grand Room, Gott's father discusses Vlad of Skora with another man behind his desk, noting how Vlad's first act was refusing peanuts from Count Rucker's son. The father observes that aside from Zaire, his son lacks outstanding warriors under his command. He acknowledges his son's strengths lie beyond sword fighting while promising to mold Vlad into a respectable knight for House Vaizid. The father reminds his son about the House of Vaizid's legacy while acknowledging his strengths lie beyond sword fighting. When asked about his health, the son deflects, insisting he's fine despite visible concerns. The father grants him permission to leave, and as the son walks away with a slight limp, the sound effects emphasize his underlying physical struggles. The dark-haired man and elderly Ragmus discuss sending medicine to the sick individual, noting Lady Oksana's fondness for her son. Ragmus expresses concern about Joseph's report regarding recent strange happenings, suggesting these events must be taken seriously. The tension lingers in their richly appointed room as they contemplate the implications of these mysterious occurrences. The nobleman urgently expresses his need to identify the source of sinister activities in his territory. Ragmus explains the threat involves either one extremely advanced dark mage or multiple mages working together, combining necromancy and curses. As they contemplate whether an organization is behind these attacks, the younger man's demeanor shifts to command as he orders someone to rise. The nobleman declares the Vaizid family's firm resolve to protect their territory and stop all opposition. His footsteps echo as he angrily contemplates the audacity of enemies threatening his son and bringing chaos to his land. Against the backdrop of ornate architecture and a decorative sword statue, he orders the swift capture of these scoundrels while his companion acknowledges the lengthy briefing. In a lavish room, Lord Joseph confirms Gott's identity with authority before inviting him to rest. The atmosphere shifts as Joseph mentions Gott's life-saving actions and expresses his commitment to their arrangement. With another character leaving the scene, Joseph suggests they have a serious chat, signaling the beginning of a deeper conversation about their alliance and future cooperation. Lord Joseph interrogates Gott about his desire for freedom while serving as a swordsman, confirming the significance of their discussion. When Joseph asks what exactly Gott requires freedom for, the young man remains contemplatively silent. The moonlit room creates an intimate setting as Gott suddenly shifts topics, inquiring seriously about Godin of Gadhar with an intense gaze. Under the starry night, through large windows, the pale-haired young man reflects deeply on the night who resembles blue moonlight. The dark-haired observer shows visible surprise, realizing he had underestimated this youth's knowledge and potential. His expression reveals amazement at how this seemingly simple recruit possesses such profound understanding of legendary figures. The white-haired young man reveals he's never forgotten about Godin for even a moment, recalling him as the knight who killed his savior and destroyed his world. Despite this traumatic history, he admits to longing to be like Godin. The dark-haired man responds with reluctant acknowledgement, stating he cannot help, suggesting they face an enemy beyond their control. Vlad of Skawara appreciates the honesty about Joseph being merely the Count's son, while a 7-year contract is proposed. His expression shows surprise at this significant offer, marked by nervous perspiration. The nobleman reveals his willingness to abandon noble pride, adjusting their agreement's terms as the candlelit room emphasizes the gravity of this unprecedented family decision. The nobleman promises Vlad a bright future in exchange for saving him, planning to feed, clothe, and train him for 7 years to become a knight worthy of comparison with the world's best. Vlad's passionate response to becoming a knight reveals his deep ambition. In return, the nobleman demands sworn allegiance and complete obedience as an armored character enters, suggesting assistance with Skawara's slums. A red-haired woman expresses concern about a girl named Jemina currently living at the convent. Vlad questions what returning alone with a simple sword could accomplish, prompting discussion about weapons sharper than swords. The dark-haired man hints at alternative solutions, while a seated figure observes, suggesting deeper strategies are at play beyond conventional warfare. The sturdy man questions the need to press the young boy in his service, noting plenty of other talented men are available. When asked if the boy will meet expectations, the dark-haired man confidently declares he witnessed the youth's potential firsthand. Swirling lightning imagery emphasizes the dramatic memory of the boy's supernatural abilities that convinced him of this choice. The nobleman expresses concern about the rebellious boy being difficult to train, while his companion pledges to try his best. The atmosphere conveys determination as the nobleman remains optimistic about the 7-year training period. He compares the boy to a wild horse that shines once tamed, gazing out the window while reflecting on the youth's true nature of chasing something unattainable like the moon. Under bright skies at the opulent estate, the blond boy marvels at his new living quarters, amazed to have a bed after sleeping on dirt floors in the slums. The bearded man realizes he'd forgotten about the youth's background, noting that wealthy squires usually struggle adapting here. The boy's excitement about his palace-like accommodations contrasts with his vulnerability when mistakes are mentioned, revealing both hope and lingering insecurity. What consequences await Vlad's defiant refusal to accept peasants from Lord Rutger? The blond youth faces his mentor's disappointment while learning about their intensified training regimen. As Zaire escorts him through the opulent halls, Lady Oksana emerges in flowing green robes, her presence commanding immediate respect. The formal introduction sets the stage for a crucial meeting that could determine Vlad's future within House Vaizid. Lady Oksana's golden eyes scrutinize Vlad with calculating intensity as formal greetings echo through the elegantly decorated chamber. The blond youth stands rigid with uncertainty, his blue eyes betraying his discomfort in these noble surroundings. Zaire confirms this is indeed the boy who saved her son, while Oksana's composed demeanor masks her deeper assessment. Her simple acknowledgement carries weight that Vlad cannot yet comprehend. Lady Oksana's gratitude flows warmly as she acknowledges Vlad's heroic deed in saving her son. The nervous youth blushes deeply, attributing his actions to mere duty while struggling with the overwhelming praise. Her compliments about his attractive complexion and observations about his build reveal a motherly interest that extends beyond simple gratitude. The intimate gesture of touching his hair suggests she sees potential worth nurturing. Lady Oksana's gentle touch on Vlad's shoulder accompanies her promise to have clothes tailored specifically for him. The flustered youth manages a stammered thank you, his face burning with embarrassment at such personal attention from nobility. After her graceful dismissal, Zaire questions Vlad's unusual behavior, drawing an admission that he has never interacted with a noblewoman before. His uncertainty and shyness mark a vulnerable moment in his transformation. Zaire's reassurance about the successful first meeting provides little comfort to the still anxious Vlad. The mentor admits his own nervousness around Lady Oksana before directing Vlad toward the lavish dining hall. Elegant attendees fill the space with civilized chatter, creating a social atmosphere foreign to the former street orphan. The arrival of steaming soup marks a moment of normalcy amid the overwhelming grandeur surrounding him. A careless insult from a dark-haired noble about something smelling awful near Vlad sparks immediate tension in the grand hall. The blond youth looks up with nonchalant composure, his blue eyes showing he expected such treatment from his new peers. When food splatters during the exchange, onlookers express confusion at Vlad's unnaturally calm demeanor. His quiet confidence in the face of provocation hints at the dangerous skills lurking beneath his refined exterior. Zaire's stern warning about Lord Joseph's reputation hangs heavily over the confrontation as Vlad contemplates his response. The blond youth chews thoughtfully while plotting how to teach these bullies a lesson without compromising his patron's honor. When challenged for his name, Vlad's intimidating presence causes his brown-haired antagonist to shudder involuntarily. The tension escalates as careful calculation replaces impulsive violence in Vlad's strategic mind. Sauvain's name emerges from trembling lips as the confrontation reaches its peak. The dark-haired authority figure urges him to rise while Vlad stands with distinguished bearing, his tailcoat marking his elevated status. Sauvain's resolute vow to remember this moment signals his determination to face whatever challenges await. The warning about impending violence creates an ominous atmosphere as tensions finally boil over into inevitable conflict. From an elevated balcony overlooking the training grounds, a mustached nobleman expresses interest in observing the sparring sessions below. His elderly companion acknowledges the request while they focus on a particular blonde squire, demonstrating respectable form. The observer's curiosity piques as he points toward Vlad in the distance, initiating a discussion about the young warrior's potential and character among the watching nobility. The dark-haired nobleman raises an eyebrow with intrigue as he notices Zaire's concealed position behind a wall, secretly observing the training session. The bearded mentor watches his newest recruit with obvious anxiety about the young man's performance. The nobleman crosses his arms thoughtfully, speculating about Zaire's concerns while anticipating a demonstration of Vlad's true capabilities in combat. Steel clashes against steel as Vlad engages in intense sparring, his sword work generating sharp impacts that echo across the training ground. The blonde fighter's blue outfit contrasts sharply with his opponent's darker attire as they exchange powerful strikes. His dark-haired adversary grimaces under pressure, struggling to match Vlad's relentless assault. The escalating duel showcases the dramatic improvement in Vlad's combat skills since his street fighting days. Observers marvel at Vlad's fearless approach as he lunges forward with devastating strikes against his sparring partner. The bearded nobleman notes his remaining clumsiness, while the elder recognizes a spark of natural talent within the young fighter. Despite technical imperfections, Vlad's determination to apply his lessons earns grudging admiration from the watching knights. The violent clash of blades emphasizes his rapid progression from street orphan to competent warrior. An instructor's guidance about footwork and deception resonates as Vlad demonstrates advanced swordsmanship techniques. His concentrated blue eyes narrow with determination while he learns to manipulate opponents through misdirection and body language. The blonde fighter executes a feint with explosive energy, attempting to control his adversary's movements through psychological warfare. Dynamic sound effects punctuate the intense exchange as both combatants push their limits. Vlad's aggressive lunge catches his opponent completely off guard, demonstrating his growing mastery of misdirection techniques. The dark-haired fighter exclaims in shock, realizing he had anticipated an attack from the opposite direction. Vlad's tactical superiority becomes evident as he identifies his opponent as Sauvain's lackey, transforming the sparring match into a pointed confrontation. The direct challenge shifts the atmosphere from training exercise to personal vendetta. The black-haired fighter's accusation about yesterday's dining hall mockery reveals the personal grudges fueling this violent confrontation. Vlad's smirking response about who laughs now precedes a brutal blow that sends blood spattering across his opponent's face. Shocked spectators in the training arena question whether such savage beatings should occur during practice sessions. The escalating brutality transforms what began as formal training into something far more dangerous and personal. The commanding nobleman instructs worried observers to let the fighters continue, declaring that true knights must possess strength of heart. Zaire watches from his hidden position with a mischievous smirk, clearly approving of his protégé's performance. A muscular young man shouts desperately for the brawl to stop while the violence intensifies around him. The nobleman's philosophy about knightly courage overrides concerns about the brutal nature of this training session. Blood seeps from the dark-haired fighter's head wound as he lies motionless on the training ground floor. Above him stands Vlad in his black and red uniform, blood spatters marking his fierce expression while he mumbles an apology for being too focused. A shaken observer notes the terrifying look in Vlad's eyes while experiencing physical dread at the sight. The ominous atmosphere thickens as Vlad takes measured steps forward, his presence commanding fearful attention from all witnesses. Vlad's sarcastic apology drips with menace as he leans forward, promising to call his defeated opponent if the soup needs additional flavoring. The dark-haired victim clenches his jaw in impotent rage, while other witnesses recognize the psychotic nature beneath Vlad's polite exterior. Brown-haired observers exchange nervous glances as the atmosphere turns genuinely threatening. Whispered fears about Lord Joseph bringing a rabid dog from the slums begin circulating among the terrified squires. The scene shifts to casual dining as Vlad munches food while engaging in banter with a dark-haired companion in formal attire. His mentor questions reports of violence against other squires, while Vlad deflects by asking about stable work satisfaction. The conversation lightens momentarily before turning serious again as warnings about estate fighting being criminal behavior emerge. Vlad's smirking dismissal of consequences reveals his comfortable acceptance of his dangerous reputation among the noble-born squires. The dark-haired youth in his green vest explains his isolation, admitting that no one approaches him for conversation anymore. Vlad listens while eating, his piercing blue eyes focused on the nervous boy named Portly, who hovers nearby with a plate. The blonde fighter's impatient demand for Portly to either sit or leave highlights his direct approach to social situations. Portly's stammered introduction reveals the awkward dynamics between different social classes within the squire ranks. Portly's round face lights up with surprise and joy at being invited to join their table after admitting he usually eats alone in bathrooms. The nervous boy holding his platter of meat and bread represents the isolation many experience in this hierarchical environment. Vlad's subtle smirk suggests amusement at his companion's discomfort while maintaining his sociable facade. The mention of Portly's family supplying livestock to the estate reveals the complex economic relationships binding these young nobles together. Vlad questions whether Portly is attempting bribery with sausages while the round-faced boy explains his father's generous food provisions. The blonde youth's striking blue eyes reflect as he contemplates the social dynamics, admitting he never expected to interact with wealthy families' children. His offer to share meals with Portly displays a rare moment of genuine warmth beneath his dangerous exterior. The bustling dining area provides backdrop for these tentative friendship formations among the isolated squires. Portly's enthusiastic acceptance of the meal-sharing arrangement brings genuine joy to his previously lonely existence. The conversation reveals deeper bonds forming beyond simple food sharing as the squires recognize their need for mutual support. The scene transitions dramatically as formal footsteps echo through grand hallways, where a hooded figure approaches Sir Zaire with respectful deference. This shift from dining camaraderie to serious military formality suggests important developments awaiting the mentor and his dangerous protégé. Sir Gregory's jovial greeting contrasts sharply with Zaire's obvious annoyance at the encounter in the castle corridor. The bearded knight's hearty laughter accompanies his teasing about Zaire's transparent displeasure at their meeting. Gregory's inquiry about Zaire's hurried departure leads to discussion of duties toward Lord Joseph and mentoring responsibilities. Zaire's suspicious response to Gregory's sudden interest in his squire reveals underlying tensions between the two knights in this bright, spacious hallway. Gregory's playful commentary about raising portly two well masks deeper concerns about his son's social isolation within the squire ranks. The robust knight acknowledges Vlad's brightness and strong, while Zaire maintains his frustrated insistence on being busy. Gregory's worry about Portly's friendless state and fear of bullying drives his reluctance to seek help from other knights. The stone-arched hallway echoes with their tense conversation about protecting vulnerable young nobles from manipulation. Zaire's demand for compensation draws Gregory's playful promise of future favors in the well-lit chamber. The fur-collared knight's admission that Portly doesn't listen to him reveals parental frustrations with his headstrong son. Gregory's recognition of great potential in someone prompts surprise as the conversation shifts to the stable area. His humorous observation about basic horseback riding skills adds levity to their complex negotiation over young Portly's social protection needs. In the cozy stable setting, Portly discusses the well-trained horse's unusual skittishness around Vlad with growing concern. The blonde youth admits his lifelong struggle with animal rejection, explaining how dogs, cats, and most creatures flee from his presence. His thoughtful expression reveals deep insecurity about this persistent pattern of animal fear. The watching figure in colorful attire observes curiously as Vlad questions whether horses react similarly to his mysterious aura. Portly's concern about Sir Zaire's expensive horses during their previous dangerous escape creates tension in the hay-scented stable. Vlad's admission that he can only ride expensive horses draws a groan from his companion, highlighting the class divide in their abilities. Zaire's adamant insistence on horseback riding lessons frustrates both boys as they grapple with this practical limitation. A maid's sudden announcement that Lady Oksana wishes to see Vlad interrupts their discussion with curious surprise. Lady Oksana's warm compliments about Vlad's new clothes and his transformation from slum origins create a nurturing atmosphere in the lavish room. The blonde youth's stiff posture betrays his discomfort with such personal attention, despite his grateful acknowledgement. Her mention of Joseph's similar growth spurred at 17 and promise of summer clothing shows motherly care extending beyond duty. The golden accented chamber provides elegant backdrop for this touching interaction between noblewoman and former street orphan. Lady Oksana's gratitude for Vlad saving her son's life emphasizes the depth of her debt to the former street fighter. After her formal dismissal, Vlad's relief at escaping the suffocating atmosphere shows his continued discomfort with noble protocols. His contemplation of the expensive, perfectly fitting clothes reveals his ongoing struggle with identity and belonging. The melancholy reflection that they weren't originally his possessions highlights his persistent sense of displacement within this wealthy household. Vlad's solitary walk through the grand estate hallway reflects his internal struggle with belonging despite his best efforts at integration. His admission of feeling perpetually out of place despite the house's welcome reveals persistent psychological barriers. Sudden sounds of violence from outside shatter his contemplative mood as a muscular antagonist taunts an opponent about losing their edge. The shift from introspective melancholy to external conflict mirrors Vlad's own internal battles between his refined present and violent past. A brown-haired boy lies distressed on the ground while his attacker in blue delivers violent blows with explosive sound effects. The aggressor's philosophical observation about human nature transcending social class echoes through the outdoor confrontation area. Vlad appears in his ornate black outfit, his piercing blue eyes reflecting as he observes the brutality unfolding. His commentary about the world being full of predators who enjoy victimizing the weak reveals his intimate understanding of such cruelty from personal experience. An elegant figure with slick blonde hair prepares formal attire for an important upcoming event in the dimly lit space. The scene shifts to urgent knocking at a door, creating tension as a nervous voice inquires about the visitor's identity. A brown-haired boy's surprised recognition of Vlad's voice suggests a clandestine nighttime meeting. The atmospheric interplay of shadows and moonlight through the doorway creates an ominous mood for whatever confrontation or conversation awaits between these unlikely allies. Portly's bruised face tells the story of recent bullying as he greets Vlad's late-night visit with curiosity. The round-faced boy's inquiry about the hanging ham reveals his desperate hunger, while Vlad explains his need to retrieve something. Portly's resigned sigh about friendship expectations being reduced to food provision shows his painful acceptance of social isolation. The dimly lit room emphasizes the melancholy atmosphere surrounding these two outcasts finding solace in each other's company. Portly's lingering concern prompts Vlad's reassurance that sharing meals is preferable to eating alone despite the circumstances. The blonde youth's presentation of a bag suggests fair compensation for the food, reflecting lessons learned from an honorable night. His philosophical approach to only accepting things in exchange for fair payment demonstrates the moral principles guiding his actions. The emotional tone shifts toward hope as Vlad prepares to share wisdom from his past experiences with knightly honor. The night sky frames Vlad's defiant challenge as he faces overwhelming odds of 14 opponents in what appears to be a planned confrontation. His dark outfit with white scarf contrasts dramatically against the blue background while he questions their cowardly pack tactics. An aggressive opponent in blue shouts, threats, while Vlad taunts them to hurry their attack. His beckoning gesture and confident stance reveal his complete readiness for the violent encounter ahead, marking a return to his street fighting origins. Vlad's tactical preparation becomes evident as he notes his wisdom in changing clothes before this inevitable confrontation. The ominous declaration about blood being spilled tonight sets the stage for brutal violence as multiple opponents charge forward. His smirking confidence while facing the charging group reveals his complete transformation from defensive victim to dangerous predator. The building tension through sound effects and movement suggests this will be no ordinary fight, but a decisive demonstration of his lethal capabilities. A violent content warning precedes Vlad's explosive demonstration of his enhanced combat skills against multiple shocked opponents. His sword work draws gasps of disbelief from attackers who remember his previous limitations, creating urgency as they realize their grave miscalculation. One defender desperately rallies his allies against retreat, while another expresses complete bewilderment at Vlad's transformation. The tense battlefield atmosphere crackles with adrenaline as the true extent of his training becomes lethally apparent to his stunned adversaries. The muscular leader threatens to kill any of his own men who retreat, revealing the desperate stakes driving this confrontation. Vlad's cold inquiry about whether his opponent has ever actually killed anyone cuts through their bravado with psychological warfare. Swift movements punctuated by combat sound effects illustrate the chaotic environment as battle lines collapse. A blue-haired character maintains surprising calm amid the violent chaos, suggesting deeper currents of conflict beyond simple bullying revenge. The muscular opponent reflects on his expeditionary force experience, revealing his evolution from simple brute force tactics to sophisticated combat strategy. His successful strike demonstrates the practical application of Zair's training methods as he creates controlled fighting spaces. The tactical advice about trapping opponents in created zones shows his growing understanding of advanced swordsmanship principles. Despite his apparent victory, the pained grimace and damaged leg suggest this fight extracted a significant physical cost from the aggressive attacker. The muscular fighter's moment of realization about creating his own combat zone precedes a devastating counterattack marked by explosive impact sounds. His declaration of dominance and personal fighting flow represents a breakthrough in martial understanding gained through Zair's training methods. However, his triumph proves short-lived as he crashes to the ground in agony, his leg injury compromising his ability to continue fighting. The dramatic reversal from victory to vulnerability illustrates the unpredictable nature of violent confrontations. A swift sword strike punctures the air as Vlad appears with disheveled pale hair, his weapon gleaming menacingly in the dim light. The muscular opponent's shocked expression and streaming tears reveal his sudden recognition of mortal danger from this transformed adversary. Vlad's fierce preparation for a killing blow sends terror through his victim, who gasps in desperate realization of his predicament. The ominous crunch of the descending blade creates horror among watching allies as they witness their leader's impending doom. Vlad pins his defeated opponent to the ground with deadly precision, his sword hovering threateningly as he delivers a stern warning about future behavior. His cold demand to stay away and stop bothering the fat guy establishes clear protection terms for portly safety. The muscular fighter's trembling acceptance and wide-eyed fear demonstrate complete submission to Vlad's superior power. Under the full moon's eerie glow, both combatants recognize how close they came to actual murder in this brutal confrontation. Vlad's casual dismissal of the violence as payment for ham reveals his calculating approach to these brutal lessons. His cold inquiry about the next challenger sends terror through the remaining soldiers, who grip their weapons with shaking hands. The pale-haired warrior's sinister grin accompanies his promise to hunt down anyone who doesn't willingly face him. The oppressive atmosphere thickens as three uniformed opponents display sheer horror at his predatory intensity, realizing their grave miscalculation in challenging this transformed street fighter. Screams of agony echo through the night as violence erupts outside the grand building, marked by brutal impact sounds that emphasize the one-sided nature of this confrontation. Inside, a refined nobleman with dark hair and regal attire observes the chaos with twisted admiration, commenting on the impressive display of brutality. The elegant hall where knights hold monthly meetings provides stark contrast to the savage violence occurring beyond its walls. But what dark purpose drives this systematic dismantling of noble opposition, and how will it reshape the power dynamics within House Vaizid? What sinister forces lurk in the frozen north? A massive gray orc warrior stands triumphant in the snowy wasteland, his muscular frame radiating threat. Meanwhile, a dark-haired young lord contemplates his father's desperate desire to acquire Vlad, recognizing the squire's proven worth as a valuable investment. As strategic discussions unfold, urgent plans begin to crystallize with the presentation of a sealed letter. In an ornate chamber, the young lord presents a mysterious invitation to a rugged, bearded warrior. The envelope holds more significance than ordinary correspondence, prompting careful examination. The warrior accepts with eager anticipation, confessing his weariness of supervising Vlad. Their arrangement sealed, an ominous tree symbol hints at their destination. The city of Dermar awaits. Two companions discuss their upcoming journey to Dermar, famous for its precious lemons and strategic importance as a gateway to the central region. The northern warriors express gratitude for rare access to fresh fruit, acknowledging the city's vital role in their trade networks. Outside their cozy interior, cartwheels rattle past under the bright blue sky, suggesting movement and preparation for the journey ahead. The conversation shifts to deeper political machinations as they question Sir Zair's motivations for targeting Dermar. One companion observes how crises create opportunities, especially for those with no personal stakes involved. The complexity of noble politics becomes apparent as they discuss the bitter family disputes within House Heinel, where blood relations turn against each other for inheritance and power. Episode 18 unveils the tragic story of Alicia, the rightful heir of House Heinel, whose aqua hair marks her noble lineage. Her treacherous uncle Indra falsely claimed she was born of illegitimate relations, seeking to steal her baronial title for himself. In a grand throne room, two armored knights face off in deadly confrontation, their swords gleaming under the majestic ceiling as family honor hangs in the balance. Inside their traveling carriage, the dark-haired strategist explains how a holy duel was chosen to prove Alicia's innocence, though their family connection remains distant. The blonde youth listens intently as his companion reveals this presents an opportunity to earn favor with House Heinel, a plan already approved by his father. The conversation carries undertones of calculated ambition disguised as chivalrous duty. Sir Zair's fierce reprimand cuts through the carriage as he scolds the blonde squire for his presumptuous behavior. The rugged knight's green scarf whips as he questions what Raidemir's squire has to ride comfortably while knights travel on horseback. The ashamed squire droops his head in defeat as Zaire continues his harsh criticism, mocking the boy's fighting prowess with biting sarcasm. The blonde squire's heart races as he reflects on Sir Zaire's harsh treatment, wondering if the constant scolding explains his anxiety. He contrasts this with Lord Joseph's more conversational approach, questioning why his emotions feel so turbulent lately. His introspection is suddenly interrupted by an ominous rumbling sound that redirects his attention from internal turmoil to external danger. Terror strikes as the ground begins trembling violently beneath the traveling party. Soldiers cry out in confusion, questioning if an earthquake has struck as the rumbling intensifies. The stern figure with the eye patch takes immediate command, shouting orders for everyone to dismount their horses. Chaos erupts as the young man crashes dramatically into a wagon, the violent shaking throwing the entire convoy into disarray. A muscular soldier rushes to protect Lord Joseph, pulling the pale, young nobleman to safety as the ground continues its violent trembling. Though Joseph attempts to maintain composure, claiming there's no need for panic, the tension remains palpable. As the shaking finally subsides, relieved soldiers catch their breath, with one noting this was his first earthquake experience, though another chuckles knowingly. This was no natural disaster. A soldier points urgently toward disturbed ground, revealing the terrifying truth behind the tremors. An enormous death worm emerges from the earth, its coiled body displaying grotesque, textured skin that speaks of monstrous origins. Lord Joseph reacts in shock upon learning this creature is a remnant of a fallen dragon, his face paling as he processes the gravity of encountering such a legendary and deadly beast. The scene shifts dramatically to the magnificent city of Dermar, where grand architecture rises against lush greenery. A young man with tousled blonde hair and striking blue eyes gazes at the impressive sight, sweat beading on his forehead as he declares the city's magnificence. Vlad informs him he's now free to explore as he pleases, causing the surprised youth to question this unexpected independence. On Dermar's vibrant streets, the dark-haired man in his fur-lined cloak encourages the blonde youth to explore the city with Garrett as his guide. The surprised squire questions this unusual freedom, prompting reassurance about staying within city limits and learning through observation. Their conversation shifts to anticipation of witnessing an honored duel featuring various knights in group combat, promising an educational spectacle. The blonde knight emphasizes the importance of learning through direct observation, explaining how seeing events firsthand impacts understanding far more than hearing descriptions. His companion warns against getting into trouble, but the youth insists he's not foolish. The conversation reveals deeper training intentions, as the mentor wishes to expose Vlad to diverse experiences to maximize his development as both warrior and strategist. Lord Joseph issues strict instructions for daily reports and vigilance regarding suspicious activities before dismissing his subordinate. Vlad, grateful for rare personal time, decides to explore the local area, noting the building's diminutive size compared to the grand Viizid estate. He observes the aged, poorly maintained structures with curiosity, wondering why a city famous for lemons appears to be struggling economically while experiencing an odd sense of familiarity with the surroundings. Vlad spots a tree on a distant hill, triggering memories as he seeks a quiet place for prayer. He recalls the mystical bargain that exchanges sword skills for memories, suggesting a deeper spiritual connection to his abilities. The scene transitions to a serene graveyard with a glowing tree, symbolizing reverence and remembrance. Vlad acknowledges it's time to give back for everything he has received through his supernatural partnership. In an elegant, brightly lit chamber, Lord Joseph Vaziad meets with a determined Lady Alicia, who sits regally in her grand chair wearing a striking blue dress. He pledges protection for his kin, stating that threats to family members are threats to himself. Lady Alicia clenches her hands with resolve, confirming that Count Vaziad has granted permission and declaring her mind is already made up regarding the upcoming trial. A dark-haired nobleman reassures Lord Joseph that there's no cause for worry, invoking the legendary reputation of Vasiid's sword as a guarantee of victory. Another strategist observes Lady Alicia's formidable presence, recognizing her natural leadership qualities and unwavering calm despite the crisis. Against the backdrop of a grand mansion at sunset, these powerful figures assess the woman who remains perfectly composed even when facing mortal danger. The dark-haired strategist asserts with calm confidence that current events don't affect their overarching plan. Meanwhile, a platinum-blonde figure stands in a tranquil forest setting, philosophically reflecting on humanity's obsession with leaving traces of themselves behind. He contemplates how memories become the only lasting legacy, suggesting these carved traces serve as permanent wounds that preserve human existence beyond death. In a quiet cemetery at sunset, the young blonde warrior approaches a gravestone reading, "Rest in peace," his expression heavy with emotion. He wishes his mother had received a proper gravestone like this one, reflecting on painful memories while brushing fallen leaves from a neglected marker. When questioned about his actions, he responds defensively, claiming he's simply greeting the land's owners as proper manners dictate, his embarrassment evident. The blonde warrior kneels beside the gravestone, placing his sword down with a soft clunk as emotional distress overtakes him. An ethereal, translucent figure begins materializing beside him, triggering memories of this place from his childhood. He recalls the tree being smaller in the past, wondering when he last visited this meaningful location. The bright, sunlit recollection emphasizes the profound bond he shared with someone important who brought him here before. The silver-haired figure with a serious expression notices a creature staring at them, claiming it recognizes him from their past encounters. The confused blonde warrior questions this revelation as his mysterious companion requests to borrow his body temporarily. With a resigned sigh, the youth agrees to the possession, preparing himself for the supernatural transfer. Suddenly, brilliant blue light engulfs him as the mystical transformation begins with dramatic sound effects. The silver-haired character experiences a sudden burst of energy as colorful lights streak around him, causing visible startlement. His wide blue eyes reflect confusion as he questions what's appearing before him, a serpentine creature coiling around vibrant, glowing flora. The mystical environment pulses with otherworldly energy as he finds himself kneeling before a colossal, luminescent tree shrouded in swirling lights, suggesting a profound spiritual connection to this enchanted realm. The silver-haired youth recognizes the glowing serpentine entity as a spirit, gulping nervously at this supernatural encounter in the forest clearing. Surrounded by autumn foliage, he admits to seeing increasingly strange phenomena lately while observing the spirit's mesmerizing blue eyes. The creature begins slithering down a nearby tree, prompting his alert exclamation that it's approaching. His companion explains the spirit recognizes his presence within the possessed body, adding mystique to their spiritual connection. Despite the massive serpent's approach, the silver-haired character senses no threat from the glowing creature, expressing confusion about his lack of fear. Warmth spreads through him as the magical hill pulses with spring-like energy, creating an atmosphere of renewal and peace. Suddenly, a mysterious figure in flowing white appears, asking who he is, which jolts him with surprise. The serene sound effect emphasizes the tranquil, yet mystical nature of this spiritual encounter. In the serene cemetery, a woman with light blue hair, carrying a wooden bucket, confronts the silver-haired intruder, firmly stating that only Heinel family members are permitted in this sacred space. Her protective stance reflects her role as guardian of the family burial grounds. The youth apologetically explains he stumbled upon the location while seeking a quiet place for prayer, his regret evident in his defensive posture as sunset hues bathe their tense exchange. The silver-haired knight attempts to defuse tension by identifying himself as Sir Zaire Squire, suggesting there's no reason for suspicion. The woman with light blue hair reconsiders her stance, acknowledging his apparent legitimacy. However, The knight's internal thoughts revealed deeper concerns about his improper presence at a nobleman's grave, fearing that if discovered, it could damage Lord Jose's reputation. A shadowy figure lurks nearby as dark thoughts about silencing the woman cross his mind. In the tranquil cemetery bathed in sunset light, the silver-haired knight offers assistance to the blue-haired woman, recognizing her as a maid from an influential family. She responds with surprise to his inquiry about her work cleaning the leaf-covered graves. The woman emphasizes the importance of respecting the deceased and showing proper courtesy to the land's owners, nodding with determination as she declares her commitment to maintaining the burial grounds. The silver-haired knight requests discretion about his cemetery visit, knowing Sir Zaire would disapprove of such activities. The blue-haired woman playfully responds that her silence depends on how thoroughly he cleans the graves, turning her head with a slight smirk. Frustrated by her clever bargaining, the knight internally curses that attractive women always complicate matters as he kneels to scrub a gravestone with his hands, accepting her terms. The blue-haired woman chuckles softly at the knight's predicament, brushing her fingers against her lips in amusement as leaves flutter around them. The scene suddenly shifts to chaos outside a grand building, where violent sounds of boom, bang, and wham indicate intense combat. A young blonde observer watches the nightly sparring with wide-eyed amazement, stammering his astonishment at witnessing such skilled warriors clash in dramatic training exercises. In the castle courtyard, a muscular warrior in red clashes dramatically with an armored opponent, the impact creating thunderous sound effects. Observing spectators praise Sir Colin's remarkable strength, noting how most people's bones would shatter under such ferocious attacks. However, they express even greater admiration for Sir Pablo's superior defensive skills, recognizing his impressive shield technique that could deflect virtually any assault from his aggressive opponent. The blonde knight in silver armor contemplates tomorrow's official duel, expressing disbelief at the intensity of today's mere warm-up exercises. A stout companion reassures him that Sir Borden is also a knight, though this highlights how knights vary greatly in skill and capability. The young warrior reflects on his limited experience in Scoora, realizing he has much more to learn about true knighthood, sighing as he acknowledges the long journey ahead. On the crucial day of the duel, an elegant throne adorned with deep blue curtains sets the stage for the momentous event. The blonde knight receives final preparations from his dark-haired attendant, ensuring his armor fits properly. A stout observer emphasizes the rarity of witnessing a genuine high-stakes duel among knights, while spectators, including Indra Heinel, gather with anticipation. The majestic setting underscores the political and personal significance of this combat trial. The blonde knight's surprise is written across his face as the dark-haired, bearded warrior warns against overconfidence. Sir Zaire reflects on witnessing yesterday's knightly combat, describing it as absolutely astonishing, yet cautioning that beginners must master fundamentals first. His stern reminder that the youth hasn't earned the right to run before learning to walk creates tension, emphasizing the vast skill gap between novice and master warriors. The blonde knight acknowledges that setting higher goals means accepting longer journeys to achieve them, his blue eyes reflecting serious contemplation. As he calls for everyone's attention, the grand doors creak open dramatically, building anticipation for an important arrival. Spectators comment that the head of the Heinel family is approaching, someone they've never actually seen before. The knight notes her reported youth, adding intrigue to this pivotal moment in the proceedings. The sound of elegant footsteps echoes as Lady Alicia Heinel makes her grand entrance, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The blonde knight turns in surprise as the formal announcement proclaims her arrival, observing her regal appearance in a flowing blue and white gown. His expression shifts to apprehension as he realizes the social implications, muttering that he'll now have insulting nobles added to his list of offenses, concluding with a worried "oh crap." Tension escalates as Lady Alicia approaches, her elegant aqua hair flowing and her blue dress adorned with gold accents catching the light. The rhythmic clicking of her heels fills the air as she draws closer to the blonde knight in his black armor. Panic seizes him as recognition dawns, She has identified him from their previous encounter. Sweat beads on his forehead as he grips his weapon, realizing his desperate situation has just become exponentially more complicated. The solemn proceedings begin as Lady Alicia takes her place on the ornate throne, her elegant blue gown commanding respect in a majestic hall. A white-robed official raises his hand, formally announcing that all participants have arrived and praying for the sun's blessing on the upcoming duel. The narrator emphasizes that everything is at stake in this honor duel, which promises to be both honorable and merciless as the combatants exchange tense glances. Lady Alicia desperately raises her hand, shouting for the brutal combat to stop as a white handkerchief flutters in surrender. Sir Duncan, bloodied and exhausted from battle, defiantly declares he yields while breathing heavily, his face marked by scratches and determination. Despite his battered condition, he insists he's not finished yet, his unwillingness to accept defeat creating dramatic tension as the formal surrender protocols clash with his warrior's pride. The elderly commander addresses his former student with painful resignation, questioning whether he can still call himself the younger knight's commander. He reflects bitterly on training Sir Charles, lamenting how the skills he taught were ultimately used against him in this family conflict. Other knights announce Sir Charles's victory with competitive enthusiasm, taunting that Lord Indra is off to an excellent start, adding insult to the commander's devastating personal and professional defeat. The elderly knight with battle-worn armor addresses the assembly, calling forth family representatives for the next phase of combat. He sternly announces that aura usage is strictly forbidden, emphasizing the rules governing their sacred duel. The contest continues until representatives surrender or sustain disabling injuries, he explains. A reminder to watch carefully reaches the younger observer, who realizes he still has much to learn about knightly combat and its intricate regulations. A dark-armored figure announces that the wild boar of the central region will serve as his teaching demonstration, his flowing cloak adding dramatic flair to the declaration. With a fierce battle cry of HYH, he lunges forward, sword drawn and ready to strike. His dynamic movement creates urgency as the blade swings toward an unseen target, building tension in the Grand Hall where spectators prepare to witness this educational combat lesson unfold. The dark-armored fighter with his distinctive eye patch grimaces in concentration, realizing he narrowly missed his target by a single step. His stocky opponent, with a bushy mustache, declares victory will be his, swinging his sword with desperate vigor. Voices urge him to be faster and stronger as he struggles against his agile adversary. The Dark Warrior calmly evades each attack, demonstrating the skill gap that makes this more lesson than fair fight. Swift swoosh sounds mark the air as the dark-armored warrior executes complicated evasive maneuvers, narrowly avoiding his opponent's strikes. Spectators comment admiringly on the fighter's renowned strength, noting how he has completely cornered Sir Zaire. However, a more perceptive observer questions this assessment, recognizing that Sir Colin increasingly senses the tables turning in Zaire's favor as the cunning warrior gradually gains the upper hand through superior technique. The frustrated warrior in red shouts, "Blast!" as he questions why his blade cannot touch his swift opponent. The dark-armored fighter responds with a mocking OLE, demonstrating his superior agility and tactical awareness. As the mustached man lunges forward with his sword, yelling threats, another evasive whoosh emphasizes the speed difference. A voice instructs observers to watch this crucial moment, the demonstration the mentor specifically wanted his student to witness. The dark-armored fighter showcases his agility as he narrowly avoids another attack from the increasingly frustrated opponent in red. The large warrior's face twists with anger and desperation as he lunges forward, his muscular frame trembling with exertion. Suddenly, the skilled fighter delivers a devastating counterstrike, causing his opponent to cry out in agony as the decisive blow lands with bone-jarring impact. The instructional moment becomes clear as text explains how the fighter created an opening by forcing Colin to expose himself during the parry. This tactical maneuver demonstrates a counter, the advanced technique of striking opponents immediately after blocking their initial attack. The blonde observer listens intently to this lesson, his sharp blue eyes gleaming with understanding as he processes the sophisticated combat theory being demonstrated through live combat. Two warriors clash swords in a spectacular display of sparks and steel, marking the climactic moment of their duel. The defeated fighter kneels exhausted on the ground, his thick mustache framing a face filled with despair as he struggles to catch his breath. He admits his opponent operates on a completely different level, like standing atop an unreachable mountain. With a trembling voice, he finally admits defeat, acknowledging his complete outmatching. Victory is declared for Lady Alicia's representative, Sir Zaire, as onlookers process the outcome of the demonstration. The confident, turquoise-haired victor in his blue and gold robes displays serene composure at the announcement. A bearded knight in polished silver armor steps forward with serious intent, asking his companion if he observed everything from the educational battle. As they prepare for the final duel, tension builds toward the ultimate confrontation. Pablo of Arnstein introduces himself with confidence, his strong jaw and light beard complementing his dark armor in the ornate hall's blue and white decor. Zuber of Shazad responds with a sly smile, questioning why Pablo states the obvious since they already know each other. The lavender-haired warrior waves acknowledgement as they exchange familiar yet tense greetings. Their shared history adds undercurrents of rivalry to the formal proceedings as Lady Alicia watches from her throne, her significance emphasized in these unfolding power dynamics. What shocking twist could turn this climactic duel on its head? Pablo of Arnstein, the purple-haired knight in gleaming armor, bows deeply before the assembled nobles and makes an announcement that sends shockwaves through the grand hall. He declares his intention to withdraw from the duel, his voice filled with nervous tension as he speaks the unthinkable words. Lady Alicia and the watching crowd react with stunned confusion, unable to comprehend why her champion would abandon the fight at this crucial moment. Zuber of Shazad seizes the moment with triumphant glee, his lean frame radiating smug satisfaction as he claps his hands in condescending victory. The lavender-haired warrior declares himself the rightful master of the royal family, his voice dripping with arrogance as he suggests that Pablo was bought off like a common mercenary. But Pablo's armored form tenses with defiance, his frown deepening as he firmly states that the duel